Anything above 12th is an improvement for them.
I'm gonna rant. I'm gonna rant.
Wait.
Who would be the
Sam's
guy,
big brain. Royal Ravens are gonna finish 4th this year.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Best of 3 Call of Duty Esports podcast. I'm your host, Josh. SalvationsElite. To my right is Bo3, and to our farthest right is Rex Shady Nero. But obviously, wedged in between, as all of us would love, is none other than the I Hold Shift, joining us today from the start for the full episode and, the inaugural guest. I mean, there's not a better way to start off the new year, 2022. Than having Shift on the show. So we're going to have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we're doing full early season predictions today. And we have, of course, a very spicy conversation to have about the CDL format. And we're talking all things challengers, of course, when we got an opportunity like this. So we have a lot to talk about today. It's going to be fun. And before we get into that, guys, I got to ask, boys, what's going on?
Well, Josh, I'm feeling like a fern grown out of a homegrown pot. And I'm thinking to myself, where's my family? I'm getting really thirsty. And all of a sudden, a little old woman comes strolling along and she sees me in the window. She says, wow, that fern's looking pretty thirsty. And she decides to break into the house and feed me some water. And I live. A lot of health now. So I'm feeling healthy.
Wow, dude. Nice. Things you love to see. I mean, at least she wasn't the thirsty one, right?
Oh.
I wish.
It's really warm in here.
What is happening?
But yeah, well, I gotta ask our
Took
esteemed
the pot, started drinking the muddy
Of
water
course.
coming out of it.
Sam, how you doing?
Good. You know,
Yeah?
good as a Monday can provide. You know,
Of course. And our esteemed guest, Shift, how you doing?
Feeling good, man. Feeling like a Hakuna. What? I feel like a Hakuna minus the Matata, a Zippity minus the Doodah. But I'm still feeling solid.
you
I
know,
don't know
man.
what words I just said right there. It's weird.
even though you said the first word wrong, I knew what you were going for. So that's all.
Did
that
you?
matters.
100%.
I did.
All right. I just combined Hakuna and Matata together to get Hakuda, which is very different from normal Hakuna.
Hakuda.
Dude, it's like a Barracuda party. But yeah, we have a lot to get into today, obviously, boys. I mean, you can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. You can drop that review on Apple Podcasts. You can drop that comment down below on YouTube. We always appreciate those. We just read a spicy review from Shift just recently. And brother,
Go in for that golf challenge.
brother, I'm zooming in here. I'm zooming in. Brother, all right. First of all, I'd clap you on the golf course. All right. That's the first thing.
Oh my God.
100%. It would be easy. But it would be a blast.
I'm
for fun. That has
compressing
to
the
happen.
crap out of my irons right now. I'm hitting irons
Oh,
purer
really?
than I've ever hit them before, bro. I'm hitting them good.
No, I
That's
legitimately think
scary.
you would smoke me, actually, because I need to hit the course more. But maybe in the spring, I'm planning on buying some new clubs.
Yes.
but we'll see what happens.
So I asked you before the show started if you were going to Dallas for the kickoff event, mostly for intel, because I was about to say you better bring your freaking club.
Oh, dude. Wait, now I need to go, man. I mean, that's the
Wait,
problem,
if you're
but-
serious, I'm serious. I'll book it right now.
He's actually like,
typing away. But yeah, we have a lot to get into today, obviously, and it's gonna be a blast. I think we're gonna do no review today because we just got literally. This is gonna be a long episode. We got to make up for not having an episode last week. It's already been too long of an intro. Without further ado, guys, let's get right into the news of the week and let's talk some Call of Duty. Let's hit it.
The Call of Duty News of the Week.
News here, come get your Call of Duty news. News of the week. The Call of Duty kickoff is coming up January
It is.
21st to the January to 23rd. It's going to be a single elimination. Bottom A seeds playing on day 1. Winners will play the top 4 seeds on day 2. and semifinals and final matches are on day 3. Do we have any thoughts about the Kickoff Classic? Anyone wants to get out there, or should I move on to the next one?
Better than last year. For that much.
Right. I mean,
Better
that's
than
the
last
thing.
year.
Like last year, it was the show match, legit show match. At least we have like a tournament format now. You'll see teams play more than one team, because last year the whole debate was like, is FaZe overrated or is Florida insane? It was just that like, oh wait, no, this is the first time they played Search and Destroy, and Florida won both of them in round 11s or whatever. But so I think it'll be more fun this year to kind of see at least that tournament play out. And I mean, I'm not too mad about the single elim personally.
And then I think we're all assuming that they're going to seed it based off of champs, which will be kind of weird with like the combination of Texas or of Dallas and Optic, and of course Boston coming in. So probably be a little weird there, but I think we'll get to see some pretty good games though overall, and we'll be able to power rank and go overboard based off of one match. So it'll be great.
Love that. We do love that.
That's the ideal situation. That's what I'm here for. I mean, yeah. So we'll probably talk more about that. In like next week or the following week for sure, because we still got 2-3 weeks to go before the event. But I mean, hey, we're waiting until middle of January for our first event, and at least we get something before February. But it'd be ideal.
Literally
if it was
days
a full...
before February.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right? That is legitimately where we're at.
Was it in February last year, or was it at end of January last year too?
The kickoff event, I think, was the last weekend of January last year.
Was it too?
Okay.
Right. I think you're right.
Yeah, and this is just a show match, right? Basically.
Yeah,
There's
there's
no
nothing
prize.
riding
No
on it.
points
No.
involved. Do you think anyone's going to
Yeah.
whip out any like unique things during this, or do you think it's just going to be everyone's going to be keeping things under wraps for now until the first?
It's hard to
LAN
imagine,
that means
right?
Something.
I don't think people are going to be throwing out too much of. I mean, the thing is, like, it's going to be scrims again. Essentially, what's going to be like.
Yeah.
It's just you get a longer form of it. Like, it feels bad for the teams that come out and get 0-3 smoked and then have to travel home. Like, thanks for flying out for a 45-minute series. But such is life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
That
Do you
is
think there's
really
any
where we're
teams
at.
that are going to be trying really hard during this tournament? Boston,
I think
Paris, maybe?
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, the teams that you saw CDL Intel's tweet about the odds, the ones that are like, like London, they're like, wait a second, how is the team that doesn't even officially announce their roster rated better than us?
Yeah, Zero's like, what is happening?
No, I think there's an argument to be made that maybe a little bit of the effort will be, higher for the lower seeded teams. Therefore, maybe there could be some crazy things that happen. So I'm ready to overreact 100%.
So
I agree.
I didn't realize this. Last year's was the 23rd and 24th of January. It was just Miles and Chance that casted, and Mr. X was an analyst. There was no reason to remember.
Maybe
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
We weren't hired for a little bit there.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
There was that whole thing.
I forgot all about that.
Crim said in Modern Warfare, they thought C9 and TSM were for sure going to be joining the league. So,
And then things
Before the
happened.
Cold War year.
yeah. And on
Yeah.
the flank too, I think they mentioned like there was a kind of a debate about it, but there were a lot of teams that were interested.
Obviously, it would have been ideal to have C9 and TSM, like two of the bigger orgs. I mean, TSM especially, like, one of the biggest orgs in the world joining would have been really good. But, hey, we are where we are at this point, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm curious how far they've gotten with the expansion team conversation. Like,
Same.
I know that
who got the farthest, like that type of idea, like.
Well, yeah, or just like, have they even discussed, have they even had a plan for expanding into, 16 teams or that kind of thing? Like, I know we're all hoping for by this time there'd be at least 16 teams in the league, but I don't know. I mean, it's really cool that we, possibly have this Boston, Oxygen plus the owner of Patriots coming in, but which makes you think that there is enough, that there's enough interest, even with how down bad we are, right now, that there could be 4 more teams. I just don't know where we are with that conversation, and it hasn't really been talked about very much to my knowledge. It's just been more of trying to fill that 12th spot.
I went back to watch the interview with the CDL general manager Daniel Tai after getting into champs with Deserto, and he had said at that point that they were very content with having the 12 teams at this point to maximize the 12 teams for now and get this process figured out. So it didn't seem like they were like really prioritizing it, at least at that point. But that was before Champs, so who knows? But
I mean, you got to think at some point, Clayster tweeted about it saying like, can we stop looking at the 12th team as a success story?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
That's so crucially important. The fact that we thought it was going to be Washington, and for some reason Washington either pulled out or weren't approved or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not just Cloud9 and TSM. There were conversations, I think, around complexity. And I know specifically like Heretics, like were ready to pay the money to buy in first year. And they were denied because they did not have substantial previous ownership. Like they didn't own an Overwatch League team or stuff like that. And I know we'll talk about it later, but like the number one team in Europe is 4 Spaniards right now. Like, could you imagine if they were playing in the CDL and could represent a whole new country that is not currently represented at all? That'd be nuts.
I know. Yeah. And like that, I mean, that would be the case if we had, 16, 18, 20, 24 teams. Like we'd have legit international rosters, like coming through, which would be really cool. But hopefully one day we can get to that point.
It's even like more of a slap in the face. I know we'll get to this later on in the combo, but like for them to have those barriers of entry and then not support, like it's like, hey, we're gonna require all this from you to even get in the league, but then not give you anything. It's just more of a slap in the face to me. But again, I know we'll probably go on a tangent there later on, but it's just 100%. Crazy to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, where else we got, Rexy?
LAG signing some substitutes. I've been loving LAG more and more lately. But Spart has signed on as a substitute. He's back on that team again.
He's back.
Good move. He's back, baby. The prodigal son returns.
Yes. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
And boy, are they going to need him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the irony is like, I mean, at this point they're locked and loaded, so who knows? But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a good signing. Like he's going to be a relevant AM player the whole season. So 100%. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like that's the worst case scenario.
It's still Bevels, right? Kind of leading that.
And Ricky.
Ricky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got to wonder if there's any like bad blood there or,
if
like
there was.
I'm sure like he knew is like mostly for the organization when it happened, but if you join back in, I'm sure he doesn't harbor any bad feelings, which is good. But
right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, he just didn't play well when he had his chance in Modern Warfare, and then I mean, like if you don't play well, you're gonna probably get cut. But like, he played great last year in Challengers, and has obviously showed that he's one of the best left out there. That's looking for a team. So good thing he found a home.
Who's it's Slasher,
Gunless,
and who's the fourth? And Hook. Do you think he might have a chance to step in if someone's not doing so great?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think he's proved something too.
Yeah.
Like, cause he did so bad. Like he's back. Like, I think he can really like, he'll show something better than what we've seen already.
He looks at home in this game too. That's the thing. It's like, during the Modern Warfare year, it was weird because it's like, you're running a non-AR, but you're still running an M4. Like it's hard to, I feel like it was really hard to be a super impact player running no stock, no optic M4. Like you kind of played entry, you kind of played anchor, but you didn't really do either. Now that you've got a map set that can allow him to either dedicatedly run an MP40 or dedicatedly run an automaton, or if the STG ever gets fixed, the STG, like his ability to flex, I think is going to be a really strong asset to that team because let's just say one of the two ARs falls off, or for instance, who knows, maybe Gunless or Slasher can't run that third MP40. We know for a fact Spart can. So I like the pickup. I think it's a smart one.
Yeah, I like if I had to guess, I mean, it would probably be Gunless if it had to be anyone to be subbed out, which
probably
based off the trends of the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Maybe Gunless comes out and proves us all wrong and is like a phenomenal player.
He was very reliable.
Like having Spart in your back pocket is phenomenal. I mean, like, dude, like you could even argue he deserves a spot on that Boston, the starting spot on the Boston.
Well, I
roster,
mean,
but
you could have easily had that been the Mohawk Spart Pro League whole squad, and that could have easily been the squad there. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Paris Legion Paris Legion. Super proud. Super happy.
The joy in your eyes.
Almost shed a tear. They have signed an analyst
Wow.
Yeah.
by the alias
Good one,
of
too.
JP Digits.
Smart man.
Yeah.
What?
I mean,
So it's like Paris Legion making moves. They have a staff.
do love seeing that. Love seeing that. I
So
mean,
does anyone know his like background? Because I actually do not know.
Yeah. JP, he worked with Minnesota for a while? Question mark. I don't
Maybe.
remember. He had done a handful of things around the challengers, and I want to say he worked with one of the CDL teams for a while as well. But he's a super smart guy. He's got spreadsheets on spreadsheets. He'll give them all the information that they need. It just comes down to will they actually capitalize on it.
Yeah, his game PD only shows up with obtains during Cold War and then with Elevate at European finals.
Maybe that was
Well,
what
it's
it
funny.
was.
When I first heard JP, I'm like, wait, JP went to Paris from?
Yeah, not JP
Yeah,
Krez.
yeah.
I was like, what?
But not
Right.
Krez, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm
I
pumped
know,
for
I'm
him.
like,
He
who would
earned
have
it.
had the over-under on Paris getting an analyst before Optic did? I mean, that would have been a tough bet to make.
Vanguard news, like the game, Call of Duty Vanguard.
That is the game.
Zoomaa said on the
That is the
flank
game.
that there's an update coming up with spawns after a meeting with some pro players.
That's
I don't know if
weird.
that's confirmed, but that's kind of a rumor being tossed around.
Well, he said that's what he was hearing, and some of the pros were like, yeah, we heard that too, but not really sure if it's actually going to happen. And they were kind of like, remember last year with the supposed huge spawn update that was coming?
That was
or
Modern
during
Warfare.
Yeah, MW, that never happened, and that's why LAG didn't even practice for like 2 months. And then
that's
it was
right.
like, oh,
I
wait,
remember
it never
that.
happened. And then they were screwed.
Mhm.
That is crazy to think about. Yeah,
But
like
would
him and
they
like
be
Optic did the same
eliminating-
thing.
Would they be eliminating squad spawns with that?
That would,
Or like,
that would be
like-
the argument from the players, you have to think.
I mean, at the least, it would be a spawn update for control, I would imagine, because that's what would be need the overhaul at this point. But I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really, who knows? You know?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those things where we've heard it before, and we got to pretty much believe
Buckle
it
down.
when we see it.
Yeah, wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
Prepare for
optimism is our
impact.
friend.
Sometimes.
Yeah, literally. But yeah.
So there has been talks of ranked play coming in. It sounds like it's going to be similar to Cold War's ranked play.
Maybe.
Hooray.
I mean, Matt, like the developer, like he quote tweeted, Crone was like, yo, like this doesn't sound good. And he quote tweeted to kind of like correct him and direct him back to the original, release of the information from Treyarch in October. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure because again, the original information could easily be still Black Ops, Cold Wars, or like a BO4 system, but at the same time, it could be an ELO system. So I'm not sure because the next part of what like we have here on the list was like some data miners found like rank play in the game, and it had a bunch of categories like subdivision blank, subdivision 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24.
Go ahead and just call
Nice.
those the Dragon Gold Division and the Dragon 17.
yeah.
5,000.
Yeah.
But like what they were saying was like I think in the code it said 1 and then it had 1 0 like your 1 and then 10 then 11 12 13 14 so like it was in an order which I think was at least good to see.
SR.
So maybe we'd have more, but who knows? That
Why
could be
are we
the
just not
Gold
going
Dragons.
bronze the Masters like every
I
other
don't know.
successful
I don't
title
know.
ever?
It makes no sense. All right, we don't have logic here.
Yeah, like we're trying to come
Because
up with
they
like
need to
this,
be unique.
Yeah, we're like trying to come
Yeah.
up with like this like unique ladder system when it's like, why? There's no point. It's been established.
Every esport uses the same thing.
just use the same thing. I don't like it should be the game that's unique, not the ladder system.
Also, doesn't Maddox work for Treyarch? So like,
Uh,
does that even matter for this year?
That's true. So I mean, that would be the biggest question. Would be like, what actually, were they releasing? But they were the ones like were helping tease the information, whatever. So who knows? I mean, That's
I
probably
don't
why
know,
people would be
bro.
worried is, with him being the lead designer for Treyarch. But I don't know.
It's just kind of it's like how Hecz and Nade were talking about. Is like you need your peaks. You can't release ranked on launch because there's already a peak because the game launched. So you've got to wait until April before you can launch it.
Yeah.
I haven't played this Call of Duty seriously in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
It came out 3 months ago. I played it seriously for like 2 weeks.
I've actually been enjoying the new like apocalypse playlist they have going on with like some of these different playlists.
Dude, with the Molotovs that are in and double shotties, I can't
It's
sit
hard.
and play for more than 30
You
minutes.
should totally join us for some GBs sometimes. I'd love to play quads, get some respawn
right.
modes in.
That
Yeah,
I
'cause,
can vibe on that.
Yeah, because really that's the only way personally me is like trying to get better at like through GBs. I have a very hard time playing pubs in this game, of course, and there's no ranks.
I legit don't mind pubs.
Really? Man,
Really?
I
I mean,
Yes.
I played for like 3
That's what he
hours
says
last night.
every game.
I literally
I
played
can't
for
stop
3 hours
watching
last night.
Scrims.
He's never
but
said a negative thing about pubs ever in his life.
What?
I can't
That
stand
is
it.
so not true. I literally was
90%.
roasting MW pubs at the beginning.
Were you?
Yeah, I mean the shotguns were insane.
Well, the 725 was pretty nuts.
725
And it got
was a
nerfed 3
sniper
times, and it
rifle.
was still hitting
But,
across
like-
the map.
I don't know. Personally, I think that like at least they're all right. They're not too bad. But I'm normally just listening to a podcast. Like last night, I just throwing on a pod, playing with no game sound, then just frying because I'm nasty.
Can't do it.
But
I've watched
I can't.
Challengers Cup 2 finals 4 times. I've watched that stream 4 times. That's all I can do is watch scrims and
Wow.
watch previous broadcasts. I
That's
can't play the
impressive.
game, but
Yeah.
I'll watch.
Yeah.
I'll watch it be played at a high level all day long. I can't play it though. It's not fun.
Crazy.
I agree. I like if I'm gonna play I need some sort of like competitive edge to it. Like even playing pubs, I'll just like go super hard and I end up frustrating myself because I'm like trying to win, but obviously like no one else cares.
Nobody else is.
And so I'm like hitting like sweating. It's just like I'm like this is so useless.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's kind of it's just my approach to how I play pubs. Like I'm playing to like work on the small things, like a centering thing, or improve a certain type of movement, or like work on my mini map awareness specifically, or something like that. Or like I'm trying to learn like work on sniping. Because like usually I go into the pubs with like a direction of what I'm trying to improve, so that kind of gives me like the motivation to keep playing.
Right.
But it is what it is,
Yeah.
It's fair.
In other news, data miners have found some maps that could be or could not be coming out with Vanguard.
USS
Alps.
Texas. Dude,
Bastion, Tank B, USS Texas, and Factory. USS Texas being the only legacy one, I think, on
throwback,
there.
baby. I mean, again, Vanguard doesn't have that many, it's made by Sledgehammers. Like, what are you going to do? You can really only bring back World War II maps. So it's like, well, I mean, I don't know
They
why you wouldn't
chose
bring back
USS
London
Texas.
Docks first.
I know.
Yeah, that's
London
concerning.
Docks was so good.
I mean, USS Texas, I guess you could play some Search and Destroy, but, it was
Better
like
than
the worst
Demyansk,
S&D
I'll say
map.
that much.
That's what I'm saying. It's at least better. It's better than Demyansk. It's probably better than, like, Desert Siege. Like, we'll take it.
Oasis is still being
Oasis. Yeah. So,
They could have brought back solar and added some stairs from Advanced Warfare.
I don't know.
Yes.
That might be a little out of place.
I was waiting for that Advanced Warfare plug. Just waiting for it.
just strap on some World War II jetpacks and you're good to go.
Yeah, 100%.
Because even then, those would be more realistic than trophy systems in World War II era. So.
Well, of course.
100%.
Well, I mean, you got to have your sword weapons, your sword guns.
Exactly. You got to have your guns that have freaking pistons on them that are spitting out fire and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Charging the beaches.
the Nazis were crazy. They built a ton of crazy stuff. Obviously, sword weapons.
Have you ever
But they
played
didn't build
Zombies?
trophy
That tells you all you need
systems.
to know about the Nazis right there.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, literally.
Pack a punch.
Literally.
Real life.
Real life.
But yeah, what's the last
So,
thing here?
This is somewhat, I think, biggish news. Tom Henderson says that the next Call of Duty game, Modern Warfare 2, 2022,
2021 or 2022. Yeah.
will be the first game with a full 3-year development cycle in a long time.
And
I
it's
mean,
the
pretty
first game
much.
that's been built since the CDL has started, which is, I think, the more important part of that.
For sure. I mean, like,
Yes.
it'd have a full, like, he was basically like, this year's game, or Cold War basically had like a 2-year cycle because it was scratched by Sledgehammer and then handed over to Treyarch. Modern Warfare had like a big rehaul originally because of the switch to the new engine. So they were kind of on a hustle thing because of their release. So they didn't actually have like a full 3 years either. And then they also created Warzone, which shifted some of the actual dev power from the base game to Warzone. And then he said that Vanguard, obviously, because of the swap from Treyarch to last year with Cold War, this game had debatably the shortest cycle of them all. So next year we'll have the longest one probably since BO4, and the first that has a full cycle, obviously, since the start of the CDL. So these are like the narrative of positive news there that you can maybe make, but you never know. Like, has that mattered in the past? I don't know.
That, things line up. That should be like the competitive COD game.
Yeah,
the whole time since developing it that there is a franchise league. You think this is the one?
It needs to be the one. I think is the biggest thing. It needs to be a Halo Infinite style launch. It has to be.
Yeah, with rank play at launch, with everything going on, kickoff events, which we'll get into, I guess, with the conversation. But like at the end of the day, like the biggest thing is that, a 3-year development cycle. Obviously, the maps and the squad spawns are the biggest problems. But my only worry would be that, okay, well, we didn't really know squad spawns were a problem till, Modern Warfare actually released. So then it's like, okay, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to get my hopes too high till the game actually comes out because it's a Modern Warfare game. But at least good news is that more than likely it'll be pretty popular because, Modern Warfare's success was insane for how wild that game was. But
even like realistically, they literally could re-release Modern Warfare. Like,
right?
Like, imagine a re-release of Modern Warfare, but like everything was fixed. Like, no squad spawns. They had ranked on launch.
More maps. They only had like 6 at launch.
More maps. Like, like again, like the
one of them was Hackney Yard.
The core gameplay of Modern Warfare was fun. It was just like there was no support, and it was just
it fun?
Terrible.
I
enjoyed like the gunplay.
It's just squad spawns and maps were the problem.
Yeah.
Oh. I didn't
mind gunplay.
beamed across the map
know.
by MP5s, dude. Like,
I meant.
That is true.
I don't know. I look back at Arklov Peak, and I know at first everyone was kind of hating on it, but I don't know. For a search
was it
map,
S&D map?
It was,
man.
It was kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
For sure. Well,
Arklov was
Maybe
the
they
best.
also increased the TTK too, like because it was a little like ridiculous at times.
Well, S&D wasn't the problem in that game. It was hardpoint. And Dom.
it was domination.
Dom was the real problem. S&D was the bright spot of Modern Warfare, but
Yeah.
that's the question. So I guess that kind of leads us into what we're really trying to get at here for the meat of this episode before we get into the predictions, which is our first segment of the day, which is talking about how we fix the CDL and kind of going over all the juice and spice and drama of the week and talking about it all. So we're going to kind of make it its own little segment here and get into the hotness. So without further ado, let's talk about Call of Duty.
Trash.
Alrighty, so I guess we can kind of start with just kind of breaking down what went down basically and how this all started. So basically, I'd imagine most of you already know this because you probably saw it from either Hex's POV or from Nadeshots, but basically Hecz started opening up this conversation about what's wrong with COD, and we saw some of it break out on Twitter kind of in that conversation after Hecz had originally talked about it on the Optic podcast. And then it kind of created this domino effect of everybody talking about it on Twitter, leading to Nadeshot going on a pretty impressive Twitter rant on and ripping, of course, the developers and Activision and even the CDL a little bit as well. And kind of going through all of that, which led to Nadeshot and Hecz having a conversation together, which led to a flank, which of course Shift appeared on. And then it basically, there's a whole bunch of conversations that were created with Crim ranting and things going back and forth. And so there was a whole bunch of drama to go through about what actually would improve the CDL. And there was a lot of Twitter drama about between Censor and Simp about like streaming scrims and player content and the players' relationship to helping the league grow. And because that was kind of like the biggest source of like debate on Twitter at first, I kind of want to hear you guys' opinions on player content and that part of the scene before we get into the actual like structural issues, and then talking about some of the other arguments that were brought up from between Hecz and Nadeshot.
I'll say this. I don't believe that the onus should be on the players to hold the CDL up on their shoulders and carry it. But I think Censor and Hecz like also make valid points of like that's how it was built up to this point, and the job is not done yet. Is me sort of summarizing what I think they're trying to say.
Like we're not to the promised land yet. Like there's still somewhere
a long
to get
way
to.
to go.
Yeah. So it's like we sort of need to keep trying to do that. I know it's like the extra work. We're not setting it up for ourselves. We're setting it up for the next generation. And I think I think it's valid. I think it's a valid point. But I hate to think that it's like, oh, they all should be making content or like, they're the worst humans ever sort of thing. And that sort of like
obviously that's what it is.
Rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, yeah, I'm very much on the same wavelength there. Kind of like especially with like what Hecz was saying, where it's not where it should be. Obviously, everyone like Octane, like Looney, all of them saying it's ridiculous that like we're suggesting this, but it is. But this is where we're at. This is the reality of the situation. So you're left with two options. It's like sit back, do nothing, and complain. Which there is some validity to it. It is kind of dumb, but. Or is it option B where it's like, okay, this is where we're at. Let's fix it. And at some point in the near future, hopefully players will not have to make content in order for the scene to grow. It'll just be natural. But that's just kind of where we're at. And
yeah,
it's unfortunate to a point, but and like I can also see too where it's hard where if the game is just crap. Like it was probably easier to stream Black Ops 2 back in the day because Black Ops 2 was just dang fun, and like they wanted to play it all the time.
Well, definitely.
I'll say this.
Oh yeah, fire away.
I think there's almost a draw to like a player like Simp. Like people are drawn to him because he's touted as like the best player in the game right now.
Right.
But I think there's also that air of like mystique around him that also makes him so appealing. So if he's making like content all the time, like maybe that sort of thing will work against him, where it's like, oh, he's not so mysterious anymore. He's not, now we're seeing all of his flaws and everything. And so like he's not as great anymore, sort of thing.
I think that's a stretch. I think it
might be.
I see where you're going with it, but I think it's a stretch. I think the end all be all for a player like Simp is I'm not going to stream my scrims because I want to frickin' win. Like that's it. They don't care about the content. Line. They just want to win.
Right.
So to kind of go back on all of the conversation is like, I understand where, the OGs, the big head honchos are coming from, saying like players may be missing out on an opportunity by not creating their own content. But at the same play, like if you look at like any big major professional athlete, like people don't love Tom Brady because he goes out and vlogs before he goes on the field. Like the things that make people relate and identify with professional athletes is largely off of content that's created by third parties like ESPN or the NFL, things like that.
But I think to the same narrative though, like you said, I think the content still matters though in those scenes to create the storylines and create those things. Like I've used this example before, but the UFC does an insanely good job of creating documentaries around their fighters, and like they've built their fighters into superstars by creating that content for them. And so I can see the narrative on both sides, but I think the content, at least from some regard, is important. But I agree with you though, that like streaming scrims probably isn't the answer. And like, especially when you're trying to create a really competitive league, there has to be a balance. But at the same time, like could teams equip players with more resources, or could the players seek out more resources to try to help build content or make content easier for them to create? Like, maybe Simp doesn't want to sit there and like brainstorm video ideas all day, but I'm sure there's people that follow him that would be very much down to help him create content. So maybe I think searching for that, like those people could be could be a play. Like,
Yeah, I wouldn't even say like it has to. Yeah, like you said, it doesn't have to be scrims. I think Censor was taking it like so hard on just the scrimming.
Naturally.
Yeah, like which is, whatever. Yeah, yes, it's fun to watch scrims, of course, but like you said, if your job is on the line and like you're trying to win, why would you ever want to stream your scrims? I mean, that's just crazy. So I think they need to find a different avenue. It needs to be this content sort of outside of the game, but still related to the game somehow. Whether it's playing 8s, whether it's vlogging, whether it's, I don't know. I'm not a very creative person, obviously, but
streaming like 2v2 S&D tournaments, like trying to find like more things to do that can create fun content. But
we keep talking about the we and the they and the situation, and largely it's still falling on the individual players. And at the end of the day, all you can look at from the player's perspective is the words missed opportunities. That might be it. And for some players that aren't secure in their positions, like a Simp or an Abizi or people like that who don't regularly make their own content,
right?
Maybe they are. Maybe that is the next chip to allow them a chance to secure their spot more than the next up and coming challengers player. But still, at the end of the day, like that's like saying the second string quarterback in Jacksonville is doing himself a disservice because he's not making his own content. I know those are not like one for one comparisons, but the thing at the end of the day is like, it's largely more on the league or their teams themselves to target those players to say, we want to be able to market you better. But even then, like, we don't really look at, Tom Brady as, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing a great job of marketing him, or before that, the New England Patriots. Like, the storylines that were created by the NFL were the reasons that people got engaged. And obviously the stats and numbers he puts up are why people get engaged and become fans. So it's hard to sit there and say, like, we have to look at the players to do better just because that's how Scump and Nadeshot did it. They were able to vlog and make their own brands and stuff like that before there was a CDL. Now we have an established franchising league, and our content is like, ask 5 questions to Caesar Skies about how he improved his game. Like, it's not particularly interesting content, in my opinion.
No,
and beyond that, we never see it on broadcast. By the way, that's the other thing. I agree. Yeah, we get commentator narratives, and that's it. We don't even have a desk segment largely anymore.
The UFC plays all their documentaries on their broadcast. Like, they're creating, and they're doing it for future fights. It's like, this guy fights this guy in a month. Here's a 10-minute documentary you're watching right now. Like, Yeah. So there is kind of like building those storylines all the way throughout as well that I think the league could do a lot better with, but that comes down to resources, time, and commitment from them. And then also kind of comes down to like what your opinion is about the league and like what creates a good esport. Because I mean, like, obviously from any of our point of views that came into the league early on, like what attracted me to esports, even though I loved regular sports, was the access to the players from the beginning. Was like, wow, like I can watch, the best player in the league or like, the best team in the league talk about why they struggled this match, or like talk about their experience, or see the behind the scenes vlog of this tournament. Like, this is cool. Watching Nadeshot's vlog of them at the tournament is really cool. Like, to see that access for the best players in the league was really cool to me growing up. And so I think that's only like in high school or early on, like that only makes sense. I think that would still work today. And it's an easy way to separate yourself from other teams. Like, and even though in the NFL, though, we started to see this now with like NFL teams actually creating like really good behind the scenes content. So I think there's a side of esports. I think if you can keep pushing the envelope towards access more and more, it's only a good thing. And so I guess for me, selfishly, I want esports not get stuck in what we were or who we are currently, but like really where the attention is going to be. And I think the more access, the better for players. But I get why players don't necessarily always love that.
Yeah, I mean, because the whole thing is like, with all of the Optic series and like the 0 to 100 series from 100 Thieves, like you're only watching and consuming that content if you're a fan already. So you're missing out on, label a percentage here. I think for Optic, obviously you're reaching a much wider audience than, if
for sure
Minnesota's version of it.
Yeah, but Ultra.
Yeah. But the thing is, we don't have a lot of that being built by the league itself. And so if you're not a fan of those teams, you're not watching those shows. I don't know.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I think the league probably should be broadcasting all of those teams' content and just like on the stream itself. And instead of having a commercial break, literally incentivizing, look, if you make content, we'll show it on stream, you know? And like, then that almost is like creating like a nice already, well, look, you know, maybe on your main channel, it's not going to get, you know, 10,000 views, but at least we're going to show it to the stream in the middle of a tournament. And that's going to, you know, get 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 100,000 eyes on it, depending on what tournament it is. And so I think even just that content itself, like incentivizing teams to make that content could potentially be a good way to help develop eyeballs. But again, I think at the end of the day, content is just one piece of the pie of what creates a successful esports league nowadays and what the future of successful esports leagues could look like. So I think then it comes down more to then obviously the more basic conversations of format, of scheduling, of the game itself, of ranked play at launch, kind of the basic things that everyone understands should be there, like a ranked play near launch or at launch, with then of course having a league that has a kickoff event within the first 3 weeks or at least a month of the game coming out, like a full-on event with open bracket teams. Like I think those things are things that we can all agree on. Like, yeah, like you need to have some sort of AMB process system in place. You need to have an event near the launch, and you've got to have rank play in the game from the beginning.
Fair.
Absolutely.
So I guess if we can agree on those things, that can kind of like help move the conversation forward to some of the other things that were kind of said. One thing that I thought was one of the hottest takes was from Hecz and Nadeshot in their conversation, where they literally said that they think that the Activision, the CDL, should cease and desist all websites that aren't game battles.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
That when it comes to tournament hosting, and then funnel all tournaments through game battles and allow for content to be made about those tournaments, and prioritizing one home for all of competitive COD.
That's tough.
And they both were honestly on board for that.
But like, who else does that?
Agree with it. I don't. Think
it would be
UMG. I think it's a smart idea.
I could agree with it if there was better integration between the sites and the games.
I agree.
Yeah, if game battles had more tournaments and things happening too,
and more integration in the game every time.
World War II had that.
Yeah, World War II had
game
Modern
battle
Warfare
even have wagers.
Yeah, they do.
Well, that's do they?
Sort of. Well, they have entry feed. They don't have wagers. They have entry feed tournaments.
That's different from wagers,
which is very different from
and
wagers.
They never will, because CDL and Activision doesn't approve of gambling, which is, again, I think going to the core point of like, if you're going to uphold standards for what's allowed to be utilized on your title, you do have to enforce it. Like CMG in specific, like their whole website is based off taking a cut of people who put up $20 wagers and stuff like that. So that's like, fair. If gambling's not allowed, you shouldn't be allowing them to run that website. It's kind of like the same thing with third-party TOs. They're running events without even seeking approvals of Activision. They're doing nothing about it. So yeah, there is some onus, I think, on Activision to be a little bit more responsible with their product and who is able to use it. But at the same point, it's one of those tough situations because you kind of have to let these other things exist so it reaches a wider audience. Unless they want to double down. Yeah, unless they want to like double, triple down on MLG and like they talked about giving MLG back to Esports Engine to then run the MLG tournaments themselves to like basically still be MLG but under Esports Engine, and then like letting that be a thing. But I just feel like all those things feel unrealistic to what Activision's history has been and what they like. Maybe that's the ideal situation, but it feels very unrealistic. You know, it seems like there's just bigger fish to fry than to go after.
Right.
You know, the pipeline of having one main website to go to play your competitive things when there's no competitive format in the game right now.
So is that really why S&D tournaments have died? Because there's too many of them?
S&D tournament died.
Hacking, and then the lack of like mid-year, and the lack of like in like an ability to go pro, or like an ability to like there's just not that extra incentive to participate in the S&D tournaments right now. Like there's just kind of those things on the line too. So I think there's a lot more going on there at the end of the day. And obviously it all comes back to having there be a good game, obviously, which is what we talked about with the next Modern Warfare game and whatnot. But yeah, so that was one of the hot fixes. I mean, what do you feel like, or what do you guys think about like how challengers should be integrated? Like where are you at with that?
Holy, I'll let you guys go first before.
I mean, Chip, you can take the first swing at it if you want. I mean, fire away.
So,
start ranting.
The thing with challengers is, and I think largely it just comes down to the whole mindset around of you have to spend money to make money type situation. You know, the fact that we added in Latin America this year is a huge win. I think for challengers at large, but the fact that we don't have an elite system for APAC still, we don't have an elite system for LATAM, which I could get because it's just their first year in, give them a year and then maybe consider it. But, you know, we saw it from Zeb's post saying that there is little to no attention given to challengers as a priority as a company. It's very disheartening to the player base. You know, you're going to run out of players that are going to be aspiring professional players. And the ones that stick around that don't, you know, that haven't or don't go to Halo, for instance, as a prime example, they're not going to be CDL caliber teams or players. Like the fall off is going to be dramatic when it comes down to here is the lowest level of the CDL, and then here is the next highest level of challengers. Right now, we don't have that problem, but it's probably on the way if it continues to be like this. I mean, the elite system was such a great idea for an integration to, again, build a more second tier to what the Call of Duty competitive ladder is, right? You've got your pro league.
Especially with...
Yep.
I was going to say, especially with the cards that they were dealt with COVID with online Call of Duty.
Especially with online Call of Duty. That's exactly where I was going to go. Like the fact that you were able to delineate between your pros, your top amateurs, and then the rest of amateurs, it does turn it into a 3-tiered system where you've got your pros, your semi-pros, and then what is essentially your open teams.
It's the best alternative.
It really is.
To LAN,
but
which is obviously the best alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. And even then, you know, it's still LAN between amateurs, right? So like there are going to be people out there that are listening to this that say, give amateurs an opportunity to play pros on LAN. Obviously with franchising, that's really not an option. But yes, being able to establish what that tier system is by cementing it with a local environment competition is huge. But the thing is, there is... You know, and to be fair, like Overwatch contenders faced a very similar issue. That's like, there is no path to pro in the system because you're not making a living for a lot of these players off of these $2,500 opens that happen every weekend. And then a, you know, elite season that is $40,000, I think, but that's split up between the top 6 or 8 teams. Like you're not making enough to really substantiate your living as an aspiring professional. And the money's not enough there for organizations to come in or want to come in to help boost that. So I think it all starts with just A, what kind of attention are we giving to that scene? And then B, what kind of financial support are we giving to that scene? And that's where it really stems from, I think, in the first place. And it's tough because COVID, because you have this whole EU system that is never going to get a chance because they live in Europe. But
that's the biggest thing. I mean, you know, one Adam Apicella tweet was like his idea for integration was franchises get guaranteed pool spots, but franchises get guaranteed stream time from all their matches. So you guarantee that all their matches are always streamed. You guarantee that they get booths at events and like guaranteed real estate at every single major to be there and represent themselves. But then challengers teams get a chance from opens, but they don't play in the in-between leagues and they have to re-earn their invitations to every major. And then they get to play in the pool play with the pro teams. But obviously only 4 get in and it's a 16-team tournament.
You can't sell that to owners.
I mean, that would be the thing. Obviously, like at the end of the day, I mean, it sounded like Hecz and Nadeshot were all in on that. And like, but then the question is, can you convince the other 8?
That's the thing. Those are the 2 owners that are Call of Duty centric.
They're Call of Duty.
How are you going to tell somebody who owns the Los Angeles Kings and the New England Patriots that a D1 college team can come and beat your pro team? They would never sell to those owners. Never.
Right. So that's the question mark. Is it even possible to sell that idea to them? And it is interesting because like Hecz and Nade were both all in on the idea of relegation rosters as well, where if you don't make a tournament or if you're not top 8 for a tournament, then you have to cut X amount of your roster.
Jeez.
Ooh,
bro. They were in on that.
I mean,
so
I would hate fire with that though.
I would hate to be working for a legal department for any of those teams.
How do you write
No,
those
sir.
contracts?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They would have to be stage by stage contracts. There's no way. And then you start to deal with players that start to gripe about that because they're never guaranteed anything then. Which, maybe they shouldn't be, but
Maybe there isn't. Yeah, maybe there's an argument for that in esports, but that would be the debate, I guess.
imagine
unless-
that New York came out into the first stage and didn't do well, and you have to cut 3 out of your 4 players. How do you tell Krim or Clay that they're getting cut?
Right. I mean, that was the thing. Hecz and they said 2. So you have to cut 2 of your 4 every time if you
That would
don't
be
finish
pretty-
top 8.
It's kind of crazy.
That's just
I get
extreme.
what
How do you even-
I get what it's supposed to do.
But like,
Yeah.
what's the can they come back at some point or?
Well, so that
They
was
have to
their thing was that-
re-relegate in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can only pick players who
the players
So the idea that was the idea. So the idea was they were debating between could it be major by major or stage by stage or would it have to be year by year? And they were like, well, then let's just say it's year by year. So let's say the bottom 8 teams, which normally they already cut most of their roster anyway. So maybe they wouldn't even be that crazy, but anyone who's on those rosters then maybe year by year isn't allowed to be on a CDL roster the following season, or at least half of them aren't, and the team gets to decide who does.
That's
And
so
then-
tough.
And then you have to wait at least one stage.
To hear that from them. That's
Yeah, they were going through all of this. They were talking about these ideas about
Pretty
what would that
intense.
look like, and then you have to qualify for the elite series, then be back in the pool to be picked up again in the following stage.
There are
I
so
was like,
many.
well, I mean, there'd be-
There's something for challengers players in that regard. If you're performing well, you should at least have more of a chance.
Right. It
to
would be
get
like
into
their
the league,
idea was
but it
to
doesn't seem like
guarantee
that's
to
the
open
case right now.
Yeah.
they were trying to solve the idea of guaranteeing to open up spots for new players to get in. That was kind of and then having to choose from X pool of players.
It's still
That was
down.
their idea.
Oh, man, it's still down to the ownership's default though of how they're picking rosters in the first place. Because really, as much as the idea sounds great, because we're guaranteeing vacancies that would have to be filled by new players. What it doesn't solve is then the constant roster mania that's happening underneath of it. Because you're
Right.
dropping 2 players, picking up 2 players. What does that happen? What happens to the other 2 players that were on that? Let's just say that it was, Spart, Saints, Prelude, and Mohawk, North American Challenger champions. 2 of them get picked up. What are the other 2 supposed to do? Oh, and by the way, that's only for one stage, because if you win again, all of a sudden the next 2 players are getting picked up. And then those last 2 players that are left have to go find 2 more players. It doesn't really
there have to
solve
be a lot of
the
roster
ecosystem.
locks, kind of like how the MLG used to do it with significant amateur scene roster locks. There'd have to be at least more time of roster locks than there are currently, probably. But
Because there's none until champs for challengers at least.
yeah, exactly. So there'd have to be more of that probably. But it would, if done right, I could see it working. But it would be there's some legal hurdles that you have to figure that out, and then
Yes.
But then B, it's okay, how does that work the amateur scene? What are the wake effects of that in the long term?
Here's how you make that happen. And I hate that I'm going down this pathway because I'm not a fan of this.
yeah.
You have to have every single CDL team have an academy roster. That's the only way, because then you've got linear and lateral move up and move down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it would be.
The only way. And even then, let's just say, for instance, that Paris, they have got an official academy team. Let's say Paris finishes 12th in stage 1. They have to make a move. Oh, and by the way, their challengers team is also dead last in Europe. That doesn't solve the problem. It's just there's no good way to go about it. And the reason that I don't like the whole idea of CDL teams forcing to have to put together challengers rosters is not only because it means they have to commit more finances, but there was a year in Overwatch where I think it was the Los Angeles Gladiators, their academy team got relegated. They did not make it into trials for Overwatch contenders 1 year. And it's what happens? Because they have to be in contenders. You can't have the LA Gladiators Academy team be in the open division. They still have to field a contenders roster. So then what? You just pick up the next best? It's just too messy.
Maybe then the option would be maybe there's twice a year where it happens. It's a mid-season cut and then a post-season situation. And then it's you have to make a roster change then. And then that's what that looks like. But it's is that it's just kind of forcing to create opportunities for amateur scene, which I don't hate the idea, but it's ideally you want teams to be able to make their own choices.
Right.
But this would still allow for teams to have like foundational players they want to build around. But then it becomes a little bit more interesting because we know how COD is with egos and who wants to play with who. And, normally players are building the teams and you have that whole hurdle. But it is like an interesting idea.
It's kind of like telling the Detroit Pistons that you have to make a roster change because you don't only have, you're not even double-digit wins yet.
Yeah.
It's
like you have to cut half your roster and bring up G League guys.
That's such a tough conversation to have. I agree there needs to be more opportunity for challengers players, but I think it sits in the challengers community first. Like the fact of the matter is you've got players like Pentagram and Pander who are still playing Halo on top of playing COD. And by the way, they're still doing well in both. Like it's so tough when you've got players that are that talented that are just too bored of playing COD, and there's not enough of an opportunity that they go pursue other things to keep other doors open.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, is there any at the end of the day, I also wanted to include this in here because I just thought it was like funny. If you guys saw like the CDL Intel polls with Charlie Intel and Modern Warzone, they all did what's the best Call of Duty of the past 3 years, and on CDL Intel it was 62% said, the last 3 years. Including Vanguard.
Modern Warfare.
So CDL Intel, 62% said Cold War. On Modern Warzone, 60% said Modern Warfare. And on Modern Warzone, 65% said Modern Warfare. So like literally on Modern Warzone, 65% said Modern Warfare, 21% said Cold War. On CDL Intel, 62% said Cold War, 32% said Modern Warfare. Vanguard got bodied in all of them. The highest percentage was 14% on Modern Warzones.
Rough.
But that's just a delineation of audiences.
Game out of all of them is Modern Warfare.
By population wise, you'd be right, I think. Just by the numbers alone.
by broad popularity, Modern Warzone. I'm sorry, Modern Warfare. Lots of thing going on there. Was the most popular, but personally, I enjoyed Cold War's pubs more. But
well, because we're all looking at it from a lens of competitiveness, which is what CDL Intel's audience is. So, I'm not super surprised by that.
That's the biggest thing. So, that's basically it when it comes to the whole conversation. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about specifically besides like the basics of the game itself or anything else league-wise or format? I mean, obviously having tournaments earlier is so huge, and hopefully that can be the case from here on out. But man,
tournaments earlier, and the fact that you guys talked about this on a previous podcast. The fact that you could have a team that never sees LAN this year. I think is a huge problem as well.
Which is going to be part of our predictions.
Which again, you should shift, like how you're saying, like trying to convince these owners. Like I feel like if you're an owner right now, you should be like up in arms. Like you're saying, I paid the same amount as like FaZe, and my team will never see LAN. Like Paris is. Like, that's insane to me that you can be paid the same amount of money and never see LAN.
I'm going to rant.
We were about to segue.
That's the thing. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, they don't want to play against AM players in 16-team tournaments, but they're okay with not making a LAN the whole year? I don't understand. Why would that somehow better than actually competing against amateur teams? How? That makes no sense. Like... I'm fine with not making a LAN all season. No big deal. No big deal. But
involved.
How dare I play against Gravity this season? That would be worst case scenario.
Think about it this way. You're going to get a situation this year where the teams at the top are going to play, we'll say 33% more matches than the teams at the bottom that never see LAN. So that's going to be the wake-up call first and foremost. I think Rex is right. Like, there's no embarrassment factor to like last year, Atlanta FaZe finishing with like 7 losses and Paris not even having 7 wins. Like, they just see numbers at the end. And if you see a situation like, wait a second, why did my team only play 20 matches when this team played 40?
Legitimately, FaZe is going to play 2x whoever, like a Paris or
finishes
something like that.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
It's going to be insane. And last year it was pretty significant as well. But like this year it'll be even worse because majors don't have buys. Like last year FaZe had buys. And so it actually minimized some of the damage because last year FaZe played 41 and the Legion played 30. But this year it's going to be way worse.
Yeah.
Way
Legion
worse.
Will have played like 20 matches. Yeah. If they
Legion
lose.
could quite literally play 20. and FaZe could play upwards of 45 or nearly 50. So like, who knows?
How many weeks? It's what, 3 weeks worth of games before a stage major?
Yeah, 5 matches, 5 league matches before a major, and then there's 4 stages, and then the 4 stages, but there's the amateur LAN. So
okay, so just by regular season metrics, they could play matches. A total of 24 matches.
Yeah, and then plus then like and then whatever happens at the AMV Pro tournament.
That's crazy.
Insane. And then whatever happens at kickoff. So, like, you could play one match at kickoff. You could play one match at kickoff, 20 league matches throughout the season, and then maybe 2 matches at the COD V Pro LAN if you lost both.
Holy.
So you could play 23 matches while like a FaZe could play like 50 plus.
Tough.
That's fair.
You know how we solve this?
But that's great. As long as we don't play against AM players like they very often. And it's like, why would I want that?
To be fair, we're kind of making up that rhetoric. Like, we don't know if that's actually the case or not. But I think fair speculation would be that Call of Duty League would not want to see their Call of Duty League teams lose to amateur teams named Tom Gravity and the Fuzz Buzz. Like, that could be a team name. You know what I mean?
18 and correct.
Yeah.
And that, here's the thing is, like, imagine a world where Cloud9, TSM, Heretics, your next up and coming investors are allowed the chance to invest into challengers and put together legitimate teams. I don't know. That's down a whole nother road, but that could be cool.
Oh, 100%. Like, man.
So instead of this, actually, now that I'm on it, I'm spewing.
Keep going.
But imagine that now you're not in a world where you have to require your CDL teams to buy into challengers, but you allow certain organizations a chance to buy into challengers, and they're always guaranteed a roster, even if it's not the same 4 players. That could work.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what do you mean?
So, for instance, let's say Cloud9 wants to be an owner in the CDL, but they're not allowed to buy in because there's no expansions. And let's imagine that challengers is properly given the attention and financial reward that it should. Now Cloud9 has a chance to buy a spot at the North American Challengers table. And they could pick up 4 players now. And if those 4 players get relegated, they have a chance to pick up a different set of 4 players. So that way, Cloud9 is always in North American Challengers. And then at that Pro-Am, instead of getting Atlanta FaZe, imagining not Atlanta FaZe playing up against 18 and Cracked as a team name, but now they're playing up against Cloud9.
Right.
Yes.
And then...
Yes.
No, I mean, that's what it would be. E United would get in. Like, those types of teams would get in. You'd have Rise Nation in.
Right.
Like, in that sense. Like,
UIU. You would have Heretics, Atlanta.
You'd be right back to having all those teams back in the AM scene again.
More. You would have the thing is, you would have actual organizations representing those teams.
Which would then provide some sort of salary because there's a chance that they're back on stream, just like it was in the past days in old COD. So, like, I just think there's no way around this being the case for competitive COD. But, like, it still blows my mind that it got gatekeeped this hard to the point where, like, you choked out the amateur scene, the life of the esport. Like, I don't know, the soul of the esport in a sense. But
I still believe that the Challengers Elite is the best thing to happen to the open scene in recent memory, including the CWL format. It's not given the proper attention.
Better.
We had 9 commentators, and at no point were we ever asked to do anything besides show up.
And they weren't even all broadcast. Like, they were broadcasted not live half the time, right? Like, it was, or most of the time
opens,
it wasn't live.
Yeah, for APAC. APAC was the only one that was put together on a pre-recorded basis. Everything else was live.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Because you'd show the European finals earlier. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's better ways to do it. Obviously, if it had more resources and like attention, then that'd be nice. But like, and obviously we saw the problems with not being able to co-stream on Twitch or not be able to watch party it or those types of things because, like, Zoomaa is looking for things to watch party. Guys like that are looking for things to play. You want to have, players streaming their POVs during the Elite series to help build. Yeah, to help build attention, like that'd be good. It'd be nice.
It could be a contract infringement thing though too. We don't know enough about that.
And at the end of the day, that's probably what it is something with YouTube, and that's probably what's happening there. But, alrighty, we could talk about this all day. Obviously, we could spin our wheels 24/7 talking about the CDL, but we still got to go through challengers a little bit, at least for a second. just talk about some of those things. Let's kind of get right into that conversation about what have you been seeing in Challengers lately when it comes to results, when it comes to the best teams in the league, the best players in Challengers. What's going on?
I asked the question, does it matter? Like, we're playing 3 hard points in NA, we're playing 3 S&Ds in Europe. We've got some teams.
That could be what happens in the league anyway, so who knows?
It's true. But I think the thing is, these first 2 cups have been largely who cares, just because there's no challengers points established with it. Right. And, Exceed brought up a really good point. It was either last week or just before Christmas, one of the two. Maybe it was in between Christmas and New Year's, hard to say. But, we postponed the first 2 cups that were valuing challengers points until we had a 3rd game mode. And now, when we still don't have a 3rd game mode, we may only have 2 cups to establish points before we get to the first elite qualifier stage, which is, I think, generally terrifying for a lot of teams, because there were a lot of players and teams who just opted not to play in the first or the second or both cups. So it's kind of hard to get a full read. What we can say, I think, for now is Journey's team in Europe is by far the most dominant in challengers, period. They are unbelievable. And then just below that, Wee Man's team in Europe, I think, is probably the 2nd best team right now in challengers globally. They're looking like the cleanest. They're blowing everybody else out of Europe except for each other, in which there's still a pretty considerable gap, I would say, between the two. Right. And then, like, in North America, you've got Exceed's team, where you're dealing with him, Classic, Shawnee, and Assault, which is a really weird conglomeration of 4 players, but it works.
And they've
it's fun
good,
to watch
though,
work.
man.
They have looked good. And then obviously 3 of your 4 players that won North American Challengers last year just won Cup 2
with
Spart, Prolute, Mohawk. But they're playing with Yeez because Saints has now opted out instead of going to go take a break. The question would be, what happens with those 3 now that Spart can, will he still be able to play since he's a sub in LAG? What's that situation look like? Is he being brought in right now because LAG want to make an early roster change? Hard to say, but I think we at least have our guaranteed best team in North America, and I think that still exceeds in Assault, Classic, and Shawnee, just based on the question marks with that path to pro team.
Right. I mean, like, I think it's pretty logical to assume that those 2 teams are going to be pretty consistent as long as they stay together. Like,
seems that way.
Mohawk, Yeez, and Spart. That feels like a solid. I mean, with Yeez there too, we know Yeez is at least solid, and like, there's a reason why he's signed as well, and like with Florida. But like, an Exceed, Classic, Assault, and Shawnee should be very, very solid. I mean, after seeing already their success on this game now, there's no reason for them not to be at least solid and like be a contender year long. And so those guys are looking to create that opportunity for themselves early on here when it comes to that roster mania that'll undoubtedly happen heading into like a stage 2 or something like that. But
and then you've also got some teams that didn't play Cup 2 because they were playing at HCS Raleigh, talking about Pentagram's team with Vikol, who moved over from Europe. That's exciting. He's going to be here, I think. He's looked very unreal, bro. He's looked unreal.
I was going to say, because I guess I'll jump ahead real quick into the Next Threat showcase, of course, that Shift put on. If you guys didn't know what that was happening, there was basically the scouting series that Shift put on that got canceled, thanks CDL, and Shift revived it with the Next Threat showcase and got a lot of the amateur players in to commit to playing in it, even for like not really any prize, but like to come in and play and show up for it. But that squad, that was Team Jimbo, right? Looked really good and like
unbelievable.
Looked really good because that was let me see, I can pull it up real quick. Vikol, Proto, Pharma, and Jimbo, and Vikol and Jimbo were frying. I was like, watch, I'm just so impressed. I was so impressed. Yeah, and like I said, Vikol, I think for me has been the story so far this year with him coming over to NA from Europe.
He will be too. I think there are, at least as of right now, Caps has a lot of attention on him out of the challenger scene because of the whole move to Boston. But there are very few other recently turned 18 or newly turned 18 players that have stolen any sort of a spotlight. Like last year we had Scrappy and Yeez and Eric Boom and all these players from across both EU and NA that at least had a spotlight going into their elite stages. Well, Hecz been around for, a couple of years now. It's not like he's a brand new player, but he definitely came out last year as like that was his best title. When he made his name for
himself,
Absolutely, for sure. So now you're dealing with a situation where we had Cruz last year from APAC. You'll have Pred this year from APAC. And then you've also, I think, got Vikol from EU going to NA. That I think are kind of the 3 most storied players in challengers over the last 3 years. So I'll be interested, I think, just to see what that squad does, because like I mentioned, like you've got Pentagram on that team that is very avidly competing still in Halo. So, we'll see what happens with that squad, that Real Madrid team that they played in during Cup 1. But this upcoming weekend, Cup 3 is going to be a treat for the community, because we're going to get every single team at their fullest, ready to square off for these first challengers points, because there might only be 2 opportunities for it before we get into that first elite qualifier stage.
And who knows if control ever even happens. I mean, like, that's the thing.
Not.
Like, at this point, who knows?
Yep.
It could be a while. And like at that point, will pros even want to deal with it at that point? Like,
right.
Who knows? So that would be the question. But I mean, like, I guess then going into Cup 3, then who are you looking at? NA, EU? I mean, you're looking at those 4 teams that you mentioned in each category.
Yeah, Journey's team is by far in Europe, I think, the biggest favorite coming out of every region so far.
Metals and Real, right?
Yep, that's the one. Real is the other player that is recently turned 18. That's looking absolutely unbelievable.
Good. Yeah.
He's really good. He's really, really good. I'll be interested to see what he provides once teams start to like measure the tempo that they're putting up, because right now he's just running at people and winning gunfights. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see when the brakes have to get hit, what does his maturity look like on the game field. But yeah, right now he's looking unbelievable. That team is by far the best in Europe. I think they're a favorite going into Cup 3, no problem, alongside Weeman's team, who's clearly the number 2 at the moment.
Vortex, shocker, Vortex is winning.
Whoever would have thought that, right? Just the best player in challenges of the last 4 years, just casually. And then North America, it's a little bit more of a toss-up, right? Like, I think you've got a couple of easy favorites with that Path to Pro squad with, whatever happens if Spart can play. Then you've got this full 4 of Yi, Spart, Pro, and Mohawk coming back. And 18 cracked, that same 4 of Assault Classic, Exceed, and Shawnee, they're looking really good. But General's team playing with Kismet and a lot of what was Enigma 6 during BO4 has been playing pretty consistently. You can never rule out what Mach is able to put together, especially with a couple of up-and-coming players playing with Mind in Ulysses. So I think that those are some fair options to at least make it to Sunday. But North America, as always, it's impossible to predict who's going to win week in and week out because of all the changes that happen. So
that's the thing. Like, who knows what happens heading in. Like, obviously, you got the Parasite, like Team Canada and everything, too, with those guys. And
Parasite and Diamond Con. Yep.
Yeah.
Royalty.
Yep. So,
Exotic. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, and we all know those guys are solid. It's like they're always going to be there in the top 6 area. So, I agree. I think I'm right with you, though. I think this cup's going to be like a ton of fun. Like, legit, really excited for it and looking forward to it. Where are you streaming it? Where are you streaming it?
We'll be streaming it with the new production company. We'll be streaming it on twitch.tv/WeAreClutchGG is the name of the Twitch channel.
WeAreClutchGG. I mean, you got to be following that on Twitter. Follow it everywhere. Follow I Hold Shift so you don't miss it, because legit, it's going to be fire production for sure, to say the least. And I'll be watching.
Dude, it's just crazy because, like, bringing everybody else into the conversation, the last 2 years, that first stage, quote unquote, whether it's official or not, in Elite has led to the most amount of CDL changes roster wise. So
it's huge.
It's a big time for challengers players to step up.
Well, I mean, like, especially when it comes to the pro points, and like now you've, like you said, like to qualify for the Elite Series, this is everything. So like these are insanely important. So hopefully we don't have any cheating scandals or anything like that goes down, because it wouldn't be the most shocking thing.
It's gonna happen.
Some of those Cold War clips, man. It's like, holy crap.
Bro.
Yeah.
It was NYSL Academy one week that got hacked on, and they finished top 128 or something like that.
That's crazy. Word, man.
It's like these teams like get to like top 20 and then just get like bopped out because they like they like have to stream, or whatever. And it's like, it's so obvious. Like you don't just like make it that far and then just get destroyed when you actually like having to play legit. But whatever, that's a different conversation.
I think so, but
send your prayers.
All right, well, I guess with that said, we can probably get into our early season predictions. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of juice here. We might come back to like, this is gonna be kind of like our full on predictions for the season, but we'll come back to it like as we get right to the front of the season, and then come back into some of the things we want to change and edit our final predictions. And we'll do a bold predictions episode as well, talking about some of the more extreme cases too over the next few weeks, because that episode last year was an absolute banger. But with that said, let's get into segment 3 and talk about who is the best in the game. Let's hit it. Oh, baby. All right. So, early season predictions. We're basically going through this one category at a time, knocking them out, knocking them down, and talking about basically a whole bunch of different categories about some different topics, whatnot. So, there's going to be some fun ones. Let's start off with a hot one. We're going to go through position by position, gun by gun.
Oh, boy.
And talk about, at the end of the season, who's going to be seen as the best in the game at their position. So let's start at SMGs. The two who are going to be seen as kind of the two best SMGs in Vanguard at the end of the season. Obviously, last year I would say most would say Simp and Abeezy. I think that's a pretty fair argument.
Yeah.
And lead the way, Rex. Who you got?
Well, I'm going to dare to be different, and I'm going to say Shotzzy and Shotzzy and Simp, I guess. Kind of different.
Different. Shotzzy and Simp.
Whoa, and pushing the edge on this one. That is. Whoa. Not only the past two MVPs, I mean, no big deal here.
Don't get too spicy on us.
Literally, that were the last two MVPs. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the SMGs, it's hard to be bold it's hard to make a prediction that doesn't feel like a bold prediction if you're not saying Simp, Abeezy, or Shotzzy, at least off the top of the head. Hydra, I want to hear him. Jeff, I want to hear him.
Hydra's one of them.
Okay.
He is in a system that could potentially put him as the all-star. Like, if we get a meta that is largely still 3 SMGs and 1 AR, like, New York is going to be on a bit of a stretch to break consistently into the top 4 unless Hydra just smokes everybody. Which, with a fast TTK, if it's anything like Modern Warfare, where he got his come up when he was playing in France, dude could blow up very quickly. I'm super pumped to see Hydra. I think that's one of my first go-tos. And then my other, I'm going to go Standy again. I think Standy was the MVP in my mind with Triumph during the Modern Warfare year. And I think that for Minnesota, he can, again, be that all-star on that team.
I like that, actually. I see. That's different. Very similar to mine. Which is, are we ready for it? Or
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, first one's Standy too. So, no, sorry, excuse me. Hydra. Hydra's first.
Okay.
I had Standy on the mind. Hydra was my first one, and then second, none other than my Dynasty squad, Afro. Is going to be the second best SMG.
This is a bold prediction.
I like it.
Bold predictions.
It's a bold prediction, but it's the correct position. Correct prediction.
He's going to be seen as a top 2.
Top 2 SMG. You heard it here first. I'm going to retweet this when it happens. Champs, Afro is going to be voted number 1 SMG. So
wow. That is something. I mean, it's hard for me to go anywhere else besides the obvious ones.
Of course.
I mean, if I'm not gonna say Simp and Abeezy, then I think Shotzi's undoubtedly the next one up. I mean, like, I don't know how he's not a god this game. He's gonna be insane. The more I watch him, the more I'm like, this guy is unbelievable. I don't know how he's not gonna be insane in this game. And so I will go Shotzi. I think Hydra is a very fair bet. Like, without making a quote unquote bold prediction, one that I think is actually very reasonable, I think I'd have to go Shotzzy, Hydra. I think that'd probably be my top 4 in that order. Would be Simp, Abeezy, Shotzzy, Hydra.
That's totally a fair top 4.
So SMGs at the end of the day weren't that spicy. We'll get into some more spicier conversations here, but next up is it's pretty simple. It's the flex. Who's gonna be seen as the top? Let's do top 2 flexes heading in at the end of the season. Last year, it would have been seen as Celium and Cammy, probably Cammy, as the top 2.
Yeah, probably.
In either order.
Yeah.
1 or 2.
That'd probably be my go-to top 2. Okay. I think actually CDL Intel had like spoiler, they've got like a poll coming out that's like, who do you think is going to be this, that, or the other thing? And Cammy was my number 1 flex. Oh, interesting. And I think Celium would be my number 2. And then I will say my number 3, I know one of you guys are gonna love this. Sign up my boy Draza.
Yes.
Yes, it's gonna be
That's my
Draza.
Sign up my boy
100%
Draza for the
That's my
number 3,
one,
brother.
baby. Let's go. I knew someone else out there was smart. I knew it.
Yeah.
I love it. No, Draza is for sure number 1, dude. You can't tell me Draza's not going to be up there in at least the top 2.
Top 2?
I've got a 4th as well, but I'll wait till you guys tell your top 2.
I mean, man, like, so this was part of the whole thing for me is like right now with the XM4, like basically we got the XM4 equivalent with the automaton right now. Like this thing is an absolute beamer, but it's like an SMG. The thing shoots insane. Like unless we have a meta shift, I legit think Dashy's going to be unbelievable at this game. Like
I like that pick.
Dude, I was kind of thinking the same thing with Dashy.
I don't know. It's just kind of where I'm at with Optic right now is like until there's a meta shift, I think Optic's locked and loaded top 3 team. And I mean, like, I think Dashy is like, he's going to be insane this game as long as, and like with how mixy this game is, he's been good. Like in scrims, they look good and he looks good. And like, again, I really like Optic as long as the automaton's in the rotation because these guys want to use the automaton. It's the type of gun that Dashy wants to use.
So does Illy, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. We're doing flexes right now, aren't we? We're not doing main ARs. I kind of spoiled I had both going. Well, that's a spoiled my main AR there.
It just comes, I mean, honestly, for that Optic Texas team, it's just like who will, I mean, there is no need to run a main AR right now, like with how fast the game moves.
Well, that's the thing though in this game is like with how the automaton is, it's like you barely even play like a main AR. Like you do, but the automaton's insane. It can bail you out. Like
an early route from an SMG serves the same purpose as an anchor AR. So like, yes, in the traditional sense, you would have to feel like if the SCG came back, Dashy would probably be that main AR. But at the moment, I agree with you.
Yeah. So, well, Dashy's my main AR pick. That was a mistake. My bad.
Oh, okay, nice.
When it comes to flex, I'm obviously, I mean, it's hard not to say Celium. What's going to change here? This game is made for him. It's ratty as hell. And like, it's like this game is made for Celium. But I guess I'd go Celium and be really boring as my top one, but I'd have to consider my second one here. Because I, for some reason, wrote my AR there as well. But well, Rex, who do you have?
I mean, I'm kind of, is Gizmo or Nasty?
Nasty.
Gizmo.
You picked my 4th. No, it's Nasty.
Oh, my word. I am so off.
Flex.
You were so off, bro.
Nasty's the flex.
Yeah,
I need to see more of them to really get a sense. But like from what I've heard, like they're really good.
I'll say this much. He's my underrated pick. He's my underrated pick going into flex this year. He could be a top flex this year, guaranteed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
That's where I see it. But that's a bold take.
He was good in Modern Warfare.
I'm going to go with Draza and Cammy.
Like it.
That's what
Toronto's just in a weird spot right now because we just haven't got a chance to see them. They haven't been scrimming for like a month. And it's like, it's hard for me not to like nerf them in my mind just because of the recency bias of seeing other teams playing scrims right now. So it's like always, I keep battling with myself when I was thinking about this going into it. Like, am I not giving Toronto enough credit? Am I not giving them enough credit because of not being able to see them play much lately? But I mean,
think about
there's no reason at this point for why Cammy shouldn't dominate.
Think about how good that core 4 was after they made roster swaps in Modern Warfare at the end of the year.
Right. I mean, again, Cammy and Kleenex were disgusting.
They were so good.
And they won the Toronto home series.
They
at
did.
the end of Modern Warfare.
Second to last.
I've heard a lot of good things about Mutineers as well. Sorry.
Really?
I mean, there's potential there still too, I think. But I mean, like, it's hard to say that, like, Dave's going to be the best AR or the best flex. Best flex. We're talking about flexes. The best flex in the league, but like, when your competition's Celium or a Cammy or something like that, it's hard to say like they're gonna make that step up. But well, let's go to ARs then.
Josh, what do you got?
But
Who's your number 2?
I was going. So that was the thing. Dashy was one. I went through. The other guys I had there were Insight, R-Cities, and Octane as guys I think are going to be right there this year.
Though. Bance will be.
Really?
Yeah, Insight will run a sub flex for sure.
Why?
Why not?
I mean, he was their main AR last year.
I don't know if he will in this game. I haven't watched that.
Really?
Like I won't watch them scrim, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bance takes the IGL main AR here and not run the MP40. I don't see Bance running an MP40 in this game.
That would be interesting.
Really?
That would change up.
That could be way off the wall, but like I'm thinking Insight back to when him and Maple, because back in Modern Warfare when they played in Singularity, yeah, Maple and Insight went back and forth to who ran main AR, and the other was running an SMG. I wouldn't be surprised to see Insight running I wouldn't be surprised to see Insight running an MP40 and Bance running another Automaton.
I think the Automaton fits Insight perfectly though. And like at the end of the day, Bance, like he's always been a main SMG.
I know, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that role swap happen. I might be completely off the wall, and people can call me crazy in the comments because I totally obviously.
I mean, hey, I like it. We're using some bold takes at some point. I'm down. Like this is a good time, but
I'm just thinking back to Modern Warfare and Bance at times pulling out the MP5 and Insight running, the other way around. Insight pulling out the MP5 and Bance pulling out the M4. I wouldn't be surprised.
If we're going by who's going to be seen as the top 2, I really think Octane's going to bounce back this year. It's lined up for him to bounce back. So I'm going to go Dashy and Octane as people who they're seen as the top 2 main ARs at the end of the season.
Skies is very potentially like an underrated AR, honestly. Like I know Josh, you're pretty high on him, but
yeah, I'm high on Skies.
He could come on. RCs, I feel like it's going to be phenomenal in this game, as always.
You're telling me RCs is good?
Yeah, crazy, right? I know.
What?
Surely not, dude.
Very low hanging fruit.
Because based off the Reddit, you would have think he sucks. It's like halfway through the year, people were roasting RCs, and then he won the stage 4 MVP. You're like, oh yeah, he's good.
Yeah, like absolutely. It's just so easy to knock on him if FaZe ever does bad. It's like, well, it's definitely not Simp and Abuzi.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Octane, do you think Octane's gonna like suffer from like faster movement here at all? Like
if the meta stays
in MW,
the same, maybe.
He was disgusting. So
yeah, that's true.
He can adapt. And I legitimately think he'll be just fine. And like watching him so far, I think they're all right. I know they struggled a little bit today in scrims, but I think in the long term, by the end of the season, I think he's gonna be seen as a pretty dang good AR.
Absolutely, that's fair. That's very fair. Yeah.
So where you at, Sam?
I say R stays, and then I'd probably second. I do Dash. I think Dash is probably going to be disgusting. Like season long, I think it's going to be inevitable for him. I know people are going to be like, well, he doesn't make the right kills. He kills a lot, but you don't do anything for his team. I don't think that's the case at all.
This game's a little different though.
Yeah.
Very different.
Spawns work out.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You can get mixy with it and like it can work out better for you. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, no, I don't see Dash having a problem in this game. So those would be my 2.
Okay. Fair play. All right. Rookie of the year.
Whoa, I didn't get to say my pick.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't think I said mine either.
We got so caught up because Josh said his pick early. He said to skip over us.
10 minutes
Josh
ago.
was talking about maybe
I guess we'll just move on.
5 categories. Josh is trying to say Dashy.
You want to just go and hang out somewhere else, Rex, or what? Like, I'm ready to leave this call.
Wait, I am locked in. I want to hear your answer. What do you got? Wow, I am all in. I mean, full.
I am locked in.
Mine's Dashy, and I'll go with Skies. But RCs would be my safe second pick, honestly.
Okay.
But I'm saying Skies because,
why not?
Switch it up.
R-Cities is my go-to, and my number 2 is Caesar Skies Bueno for sure.
Really? Both of you had them.
Yep.
I love hearing this.
Yep.
I've heard, Mutineers I've heard is good.
Wait, what's your reasoning,
this
Shift?
year?
What's that?
What's your reasoning?
Oh, I mean, I'm mostly looking at this as if the STG is eventually going to get fixed. Like,
interesting.
I'm not looking at it as like right now. Automaton, anybody can pick that up and be fine with it. By end of the season, if the STG or some other main AR actually comes back to the picture, Skies was literally the only reason that Florida was any good during Modern Warfare. He was the only reason. Yeah. And he was just taking over games kind of the same way that Octane was with Seattle back then. So, yeah, I'm going with Caesars. I chose to invest in my game. Sky's bueno.
Fair play.
Everlasting meme.
It will never fade.
It will
when you
not
play
die.
it 5 times in each individual commercial break, it's going to live on forever. Just like, yo, Tommy, we got to go.
Yo, Tommy, we got to Oh.
So now I think we can talk Rookie of the Year.
Right.
So at this point, obviously we got, a handful of options, assuming that the Boston roster is right. The options would be like Capsule, Nero, Dave, Gizmo, Nasty, Pred, Sib, Hexy, or other unsigned Challengers players. So either you could go real bold with this, or you can kind of go with the guys that are already there. Shift lead the way. Who you got?
Got Nasty.
Nasty.
Okay.
Flat out, I think that he's got the opportunity, especially in the current meta, but even if it changes, to pick up any weapon off of a dead body and run havoc with it. I think he's going to be a living kill streak the entire year. So I've got Nasty as Rookie of the Year this year.
Okay. Fair play.
I think if London does well, I think Nasty will also be Rookie of the Year. I think he's always been a really good player in Challengers. He's always gotten those high placings. I think it's going to carry over.
Sam?
I mean, do I want to go like off the wall? I mean,
there's some pretty, I wouldn't say Nasty's obviously the pick. At the end of the day, like, I'm very interested in, Nasty's definitely very likely or possible, but like at the end of the day, Sib, Pred, Dave, and even Capsule's interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
but like Sib and Pred, maybe I'm just so low on that team.
Like, that team's fighting for 11th, so you're right.
Like that's the thing is like they're not just set up. Like when we look at London, Nasty and Gizmo are set up. Capsule. I know
Capsule's
Boston.
my wild card for me.
Look,
well, it's so hard to know.
it's extremely hard to know. I'm going to go back on the same tweet that I'd posted from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is a mind-blowing change. Like, did he look good during the first cup? Yes.
Yes.
Have I ever seen an instance of the last 365 days where I could say the same thing? No, because the guy wasn't making Sunday. He never made an elite. So
yeah, it's crazy.
It's hard to put value on somebody who is more risk than reward right now for Boston.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. For sure. He looked flashy, that's for sure. But like at the end of the day, it's hard to
keep that up at this level of competition.
Everyone's had one good tournament though. Like anyone at that level has had a good tournament. That's like at the end, that's just how it is. So I'm gonna go.
Do you see Hexy getting subbed in for Ultra?
No.
No.
That's the thing too.
No.
So it's like you'd want to say Hexy because of like the talent level, but will he ever get in? I don't
think
it
so.
would only be for Bance if Bance was really bad. Like, but that seems unlikely. So
like
considering
for me,
he's the
it's
leader.
like how do I just want to say Nasty too? It's kind of like a kind of boring pick. I know because
I'm gonna go Dave.
Okay, there we go.
Dave Patty. I think this Ford, I'm obviously going to be higher on the Ford team because I do think that Awakening can be, I think people are sleeping on Awakening as a main SMG, and then you've got Skies who's always going to be reliable. And then we'll see what happens. I think Yeez ends up coming in.
V2.
And then
biting
we'll
my
have,
tongue.
then you have a high octane slaying team there. So then they just got to figure out how they play as a team, and then you have some interesting potential. So I'm going to go Dave. Why not?
I think
Yeez.
I was going to say that I think the bigger Rookie of the Year potential is actually in Yeez than in Dave. Yeah.
I could see that. So
I'd be fine,
I'll hedge my bets
honestly.
by saying one of those two.
Yeah. Not
Dan,
bad.
who's your bet?
not bad.
You going Nasty?
Nasty. Yeah.
Boring.
I know. Hey, I went fun on SMG. Okay.
You did go fun on
You
SMG.
did.
like that
I
about
respect
you.
that. Actually, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. So next category is in a similar vein, and then there's next two categories is the first franchise to make official roster change to their starting lineup, and then the next one is who's the Challengers player most likely to get picked up currently, who's in the Challengers scene. If you had to guess, most likely. So, anyone have an option off the rip here? Because there are a lot of options to go through. That's for sure. I'll start, I guess.
Go for it. Go for it.
I think the toughest argument for me is do I think that Seattle could make a roster change could they need a roster change? Yes, but we haven't seen those teams be very willing to make roster changes in the past. So it's hard for me to buy in that Seattle is going to be willing to make a roster change. So I'm actually going to go Boston as the first team to make a roster change, that they're going to kind of create this amateur lineup and then bring in somebody else to their starting lineup quickly than not, considering those guys are all recently from the amateur scene. They're well connected. They know who they probably want if someone doesn't work out. So I'm going to go Boston.
Question.
I think
are we talking roster change like somebody who's not currently on the roster starting or subbing, or the first one to make us change on the starting roster, including potentially subs getting in the mix?
Yeah, it could include subs getting in the mix.
Okay. I think Rex and I are about to go to the same way where we say Florida is the first one to make the move.
Right.
Okay. That's
I was
fair.
going to say LAG or Florida.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, Florida is very possible. I had them on my little short list here. I could see Seattle needing to make a change quick if things don't work out in the first two stages.
But they
Rex will give them more than 2 stages.
That's what I'm saying. I think they're going to give it more in 2 stages, even if they're not playing well. And then Paris is kind of just Paris. So that would be the question. Sam, who do you have?
I mean, if we're going by like history and who the coach currently is, the Thieves are kind of destined to make a roster change like 5 different times. Right?
Wait. Who would be the
Sam's
guy,
big brain.
though?
I know. I mean, but this is what we saw. It's what we saw last year,
Dude's playing probabilities out here.
Exactly. Well, yeah. So all,
But couldn't it be London too then?
for sure. I also think
London could definitely make a change.
London's, yeah. The thing
If
is,
it doesn't work.
I don't know.
But not
for
the
me,
first one.
London only makes a change if they can get Harry in place of Zero.
Yeah.
The only
that
way
makes
they make
sense.
a change. And that's if Zero plays poorly. From what I've been able to tell, Zero's actually been not just holding
Pretty
his own,
good.
he's been looking pretty solid.
And everyone
so.
likes Zero. Like, that's the thing. Like, he's
Yeah.
such a chill dude. Like, I'd be surprised if he gets benched quickly, That's fair. Okay. Well, I guess I think the player that's most likely to get picked up first is probably like a Mohawk, just because of
you took mine.
it makes too much sense, right? Like, he's the Challengers champ. They just won
I've
the
got a good
Stage 2
other one.
Cup. That one makes a lot of sense, I think, at the end of the day. And so Mohawk's my pick. I'm glad I stole your thunder. I feel good about that.
You would, you thunder stealer. All right, I'll take the easy. So Mohawk was like that's kind of spicy pick. I'll take the safe route. Diamond Con will get picked up before the end of the year.
Oh, interesting. Who do you
Nice.
think would be the team most likely to pick him up?
Anybody,
Seattle?
dude. The fact
Seattle
that
for
he's not
accuracy?
the fact that he's not a substitute on some team already is already ridiculous,
Yeah,
bro.
I agree.
New York, what are you doing? Like, keep him on the roster. You just never know what's going to happen. Like, Diamond Con already proved that he could be a valued asset. Yeah, someone, yeah. That was so BM. I love Clayster, okay? First of all.
Dude, same, obviously.
Yeah. The thing is, he already proved himself in 2 separate stages that he can not just hang, but he can actually lead a team to victory. So I think Diamond Con is the easy selection as far as players that should get back up into the CDL again quickly.
That's fair.
Doug Censor
Sam?
Barton.
Oh, Dougie. Let's go.
I mean, as cool as that would be, I don't think that's probably gonna happen. Nope. No shade on the Censor. I know. I don't want to, I don't want him to go after me because he's kind of on a tear right now on Twitter. But I, like kind of looking at, possible who could fit in where. I think it'd be interesting. Like, I know this is one player that like is in a tough spot that we wanted him in for a couple of years now, but I think Gravity could work.
Gravity, yeah.
I think he could work. Like if let's say
Seattle.
the Surge doesn't work out or like there's just some role stuff. Put Tom Gravity on that team. I think that could be a great mixture. Of course, with like
Phoenix would make that change. If Phoenix
would
gets
do
the
it.
green light, he'd make that change. He's coached Tom before, so
And he's coached him. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Yeah, that makes the most sense.
It's just
That's a
It
good
is-
call.
yeah.
It is a good
just
call.
it just sucks that being a main AR is just like it.
Oh, it sucks so bad.
It just is the worst right now. like he's
It's like Hamza, like bro, Glow Frosty, like years ago would have been in the league in every single pro league if the CDL was how the CWL was back in the day, obviously.
Yeah,
But-
like Tom has clearly proven himself. I mean, like he's a fantastic player. It's just a matter of there's so limited spots of ARs in the league, and so I don't know. I think it could work, and I think it'd be really fun to see him in the league too.
Yeah.
So I think
That's
he
a good
deserves
shout
it as
right
well.
I like that shout.
I'm
Rex, do you have an
looking at a
option?
player like Exceed who might be able to make it back into the league.
Oh, interesting.
You don't think so?
Could. He's definitely good
I mean, it's
enough. Say
possible.
that much.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Yeah. Like
I feel like he has
my-
the connections and network somewhat to get in.
if Vickle keeps winning, though, like a team could see him as the next Hydra and then immediately swoop him up. Like maybe he doesn't get in right away. It could be like on a challenge on a academy team for a second, but like he could be the first player signed, or the next player signed. It's possible.
I think it'd be a stretch for this year, but if he wins a bunch in North America
If he wins
this year,
one of these next two cups,
possible. It would have to
It's
be more than just
possible.
the next two cups. He would have to be dominating in the elite as well.
but for someone to take like a shot on him as a substitute and then like, all right, yeah, see what happens. I think it's at least
Yeah.
possible. Maybe he would wait if he won the first two cups and not sign a substitute deal, which what we saw with Wester last year. So that'd be the debate. But I could see that being a situation if he keeps winning, just because the team's looking for the next Hydra, and then boom, now you're in the league.
Royalty needs to be
Fair
in the
play.
conversation. Pentagram needs to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
Those are like
I
the
mean,
next two, I would say,
general.
as far as game playing SMGs. Pentagram and Royalty are my next top two.
For
I think,
sure.
just based
For
on
sure.
availability in North America. This obviously includes Vortex, who should have been in the league 3 years ago, but
Right. That's the
what
thing.
do I know?
All right.
What do you know?
Not much.
Next one is which franchise is most likely to not we're predicting thinking. So which will there be a franchise who does not make a major, and if so, which one?
Yes.
Paris Legion.
I think
Paris
so.
Legion.
How do you not say
Yeah.
Paris? I mean, at this point in
have
the
to.
game,
You have to, right?
I mean, I think there's a very good argument for Boston as well, to be honest. Like, especially if it's a Caps Nero front line. Like,
The people are
Two-
so high on that team. They are really high on
I
them.
really don't know why. Scrims are
Methods.
one thing, but you look at who they have to play up against. Like, that could potentially, if not definitively, based on experience alone, will be the weakest SMG front line next to Paris.
Right. Like, and this is something that like Rex and I have talked about just recently. We were just kind of having a conversation about like, as teams start figuring you out and they start to get, as pro players start getting that playbook of where you're at in their heads, it's easier to figure you out. And so like, it only makes sense that a team of Capsidal and Nero that pro players have never scrimmed before they might find some dubs in scrims against some of these teams early on. But it's like once rubber hits the road and they're on a main stage, it's hard to imagine that them splitting, winning 4 of the 6 maps against good teams turns into like a lot less than that,
and then like even in like a conversation about I think it was like the lessons learned, where it's like you need to have like your like SMG front basically has to be like the top 15 players if you're
going to be a top 6 team.
Correct. Yeah, like a top 6 team. And so when you have like bottom 4, there's a great chance that, if your SMG front is not there, you're pretty much going to like guaranteed not to be able to make these majors, which is kind of crazy to like, again,
Right.
all that aside, where like you're paying 25 mil and then not be able to see land for the whole year. That's just
Yeah.
wild.
Can Tej
but-
be a top 20 or top 20 player in the league? Is like the real question.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. Yeah.
which
for
is
them to
just-
be like top 6 or, but I guess we're really talking top 8 here. So it just feels like Paris doesn't have the upside that most other teams have, which is why it's easiest to pick them.
which is hard
Great.
too, because like John, I want John to come back so
Oh yeah.
bad,
I mean,
but
fellow, they have so many guys everybody likes,
I know,
like that's
it just sucks. I
This
wish
is- It's kind of last chance saloon for all 4 of those players, though,
It
to be
is.
honest.
I think so too. Yeah,
Like,
I think
if you're not successful in the first 2 stages, all 4 of those players could be gone off that team.
it's possible. It's very possible.
Yeah, I think I was talking to either Josh or Rex at some point, but like this is like the worst possible thing I think for John is like, because like this is like his like last like showing year,
Mm.
and to be put on this roster where like you're pretty much forced to be in
The
being
pickup
that
team.
like main slayer. It's like, oh
Yeah.
crap.
Right.
That
You'd want
sucks.
him more in a Bance role to be the
Yes.
support slayer or a support SMG on a good team with 3 other talented players.
Exactly. And yeah, it's just it's rough, but it is what it is. Like you got to show out if you're
that's
going
the
to be
thing.
the top 6 team. So
So, all right. Next one is obviously, let's just kind of all pick our top 3 teams at champs. This is where it gets real fun. I mean, imagine most of us are going to have FaZe there in the top 3. So I guess we can kind of go through there and kind of where you're at. Does anyone want to go first? Fire away.
I
I'm
mean,
curious
Rex?
to see what Rex has to say.
yeah.
Rex, you got
I
your
feel like
top
he's gonna
3
give us
locked
the
and loaded?
Likely to win champs.
Top 3.
Yeah, your top 3.
I'm curious if he's got New York up there.
Man, the thing with New York, I just don't know how it's going to play out with, I hate to say this, but like Crim and Clay. And just if they're going to be able to all slay enough.
Ah,
Right?
But
Yeah.
I think FaZe will be up there. I think Optic will be up there. And I'll say New York. I'll put New
Okay.
York up there.
okay.
Yeah, Toronto
FaZe,
again.
Optic,
This
New
is
York.
this is right back where I am with the whole Toronto's the biggest X factor conversation here, where I'm just like, they're going to be a top 5 team for sure, but like, will they stay being elite? It's so hard to know. I just have no reason not to put them in the top 3 at this point.
Me
so
too.
it's like, I probably just gonna go FaZe, Toronto, Optic as my
that's-
top
that's
3,
My top 3 as well.
and then
Are we-
New York would probably be my 4th.
Yep, New York's my 4th.
So hard though, man. It's like
I
how
think
many
Toronto's going to be weaker this year.
how many times has Optic
It's-
been like the top 3 team going into the season?
I know, right? I
And
know,
then
but
it's
doesn't this feel a
year
little
after year.
different?
But
I think
Optic
we
this
say that
year
every
is
year
different.
though. It's like it's different this year. It's different this year.
different beast this year.
Okay. Well, we'll see midway through when they got 6th or 7th, 8th at a major.
having the goat Rambo helps. So
for sure. No,
major
I do
one
think it's
winner. Major one winner. Do you want to go? Anyone have a fun one? We'll
No.
just do the major one winner.
No one has a fun one.
I was
Go
gonna
with
say,
FaZe.
how do you not say FaZe early on? Like,
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean,
what else do you do?
I'll
is
say
there
Optic Texas.
That's what I'm
I'll say
saying. Is there
Optic Texas?
first major
They're
of
the
the year?
favorites
it's-
by bets.
We've seen
I
crazier
think
things
the
than
first
Optic
major will be
winning in the
Texas.
first. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We've seen crazier things than Optic winning the first event of the year. That's happened a few times in COD history. Like that's not the craziest thing ever for Scump to find one at the beginning of the season. But I think FaZe would be my favorite for sure. So,
Yes.
all right, I think this might be the most fun one. Which team not will make the first, but who will make the most roster changes? Sam, are you sticking to your guns on
These,
logic of
baby.
last season?
JCap is just Thanos of that, just snapping. I mean so like if I were to like take it away a little bit, but I think Surge has a potential to make a lot more roster changes than anyone else, honestly.
Right.
But they
the
won't.
debate.
I don't think they will.
See, that's the question. The debate is did they not make roster changes last season because they had so much money wrapped up in Gunless and Octane? Like, was that the reason why they didn't make roster changes? And so then now this year they're prepared to make more roster changes, so they'll be more willing to make them this year, which would be the narrative. I just don't know.
Part of me thinks like because of like the way this roster is set up and like
Bringing
who's
in
in the
Phoenix.
roster, they're willing to make changes now. Like I don't know. It seems that way. I know that there's extra things that sometimes just like tie up those moves. So it's kind of, whatever. But I think this team is set up to, or at least they are willing to make changes and they're willing to see or like take risks. Simp and
Yeah.
Predator obviously risks. They're great players, but bringing them in the league is a risk.
For sure. For sure.
Nonetheless. So
They're on the
I don't
short
know.
list for sure. I guess my head would lean towards either Boston or Florida as teams that
Oh.
potentially could make a lot of roster changes. Thoughts?
I love that Florida pick because that's where my head's going. Florida's going to make the most changes.
I mean, they've already got some of the ammunition lined up. So like they you know, they're and they did it last year. I mean, they were subbing in Slack. They subbed out Slack or subbed in Slack before the season.
Havoc,
so
that whole thing.
Yeah.
Before that, it was Mox and Skies and all that. Who's running what?
yeah, like they've been willing to
Man,
make
I forgot
roster
about Mox on that
changes.
team. Wow,
I know.
Yeah, Halo
that's
now.
crazy.
He just had a really good finish at Halo this just yesterday.
Really?
He had a good finish, yeah.
Cool.
But
Yeah, Florida.
I think Florida because you've got Willett who doesn't want to lose, and I think he's willing to make changes. Obviously, with what their starting roster is, with Yee's still already confirmed as their 5th, there could be a lot of flip flopping going on just within those 5 players. I think the curious thing about Boston will be how much does Boston's management say, all right, it's our first year. We joined January the 1st. We haven't even actually joined yet. You know, let's give them a year before we start, you know,
Going
let's not put the cart before the horse here with Boston.
It's the
fair.
parasite effect.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think your other team that could potentially make a lot of moves is actually LAG. I think that Ricky and Bevels have showcased they're willing to make changes in the past, but I think it's, again, another year where LAG's sick of being at the bottom, and they will make the changes they need to not be there. I think Seattle will just come down to how much does Phoenix push on management to say, hey, we need to make a change, because he doesn't want to come into his first year in the league with a losing team. But
That's fair.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. Mine was going to be LAG, and I would say Surge, but like again, it's like you're just unsure if they're going to make those changes or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just with Florida, it's just hard to know how much money they have locked up in Vivid or like what that looks like. And they already brought in Vivid, so it's like, are you really gonna bring in Yeez? It's only if Dave doesn't work, probably. Then you move Awakening back to like Flex, and you bring in Yeez, see what happens. If it doesn't work, then you're trying to mix around the pieces a little bit, I guess. maybe.
exactly.
So it just feels like it could be messy, but not as many. Like, it's just hard to know what their combinations would look like with that roster. But who knows? Crazier things have happened. All right, last few here. So the next one is well, I guess we can go with what team's gonna be the biggest disappointment. All right, what team you think from the public's perspective is lined up to be rocking and rolling at wherever they're gonna finish, and they're gonna finish farther below that than anyone could possibly think?
Optic. It's gonna
I
explode.
just don't think that's the case this year.
Yeah, I love where your head's at, Sam.
I know.
I really do.
Like I know it is by definition just a different. It is different than the past 4 or 5 years. But how many times have we said the same thing where it's like, this is new year, new Optic. Here we go. They like win the first major and then just but. That is a little harsh, I will say.
I mean, depends what you call a disappointment too.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
It's just finishing below expectations, like
which if Optic finished third a bunch, that is probably below expectations.
Yep.
So
So I
like,
think that's an unfair way to judge them.
I mean,
I think outside of
like,
top 4 would be the easier way of putting expectations, like what
I would say if they finished below third, that would be pretty bad for like most Optic fans. Like that'd be really bad. I would say Ultra's one where I think everyone is just assuming they'll be locked and loaded top 3, where it's just like there's at least a potential
Ultra.
where maybe last year was just the year everything clicked for them, and then they can never like get back to that magic again. And that would be the only like narrative I could see being a thing, but I'm just not convinced if I even believe that. I'd probably go LAG.
I was gonna say,
Wow.
I think.
Well, what's disappointment for LAG?
I was about to say.
I would say most teams see them
Anything
as a
above
top,
12th is
like,
an
as-
improvement for them.
That is true.
I'm saying is I think a lot of people see them as a top like 5th place.
What? Who?
Whoa! The Reddit
about that.
loves LAG. They love LAG. They have them. A lot of them have them above subliners or above, for sure, above Rocker.
If that's the case, then I think they're going to be the biggest disappointment.
Yeah, if Reddit thinks that way,
Right now,
that's a lot of false hope to go off of.
Right now,
Just
they're
based on
the
previous
sixth-
experience.
Right now, they have the 6th best odds to win the kickoff based off of CDL Intel's stuff here. Yeah, so it's up. They're ahead of Rocker, Surge, Mutineers, Boston, Ravens, and Legion.
Wow.
Yeah, I do think public perception is pretty high on that starting roster.
Could you imagine being the bookkeeper for Bets 365 and saying, I've got to make odds and I'm going to go off of Reddit to make them? Sorry, it's neither here nor there, but
That would be an interesting job.
Maybe it is Reddit making them. Who knows?
okay.
That's
Wow.
funny.
So
We're
mine
getting
was
meta here.
Minnesota. Minnesota was mine after their performance
Really?
from last year.
I
Yeah.
like it. I like it.
I
as
think
in-
that team is not exempt from making moves either, by the way. So,
That's
but
true.
I think as far
Well,
as
they'll
where
make them
they
if they're not
finished
winning.
last year, I think that they're probably the one that's most likely to underperform compared to where they were last year.
That's fair.
I can
That's
see
fair.
it too.
All right. Well, last question here is who's going to be your breakout player of the year? You can throw out 2 options if you'd like, I guess. But who's kind of like your guy as breakout player of the year? Or you could even maybe say most underrated player. That it kind of be another narrative to think about it, but like kind of the breakout player that's going to rise above expectations by the end of the season.
Is Afro underrated?
I was gonna say, I think by definition, I have to say Afro because of how high I was.
both in the right there.
Yeah,
That's fair. I guess you could make an argument that he broke out last year because of how much he dominated when he was with London, but they weren't winning.
Yeah, but
so
London
it's like,
was ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
they're
that's the
pretty bad.
thing. So,
Unfortunately,
okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay.
And what else comes to mind?
I've got 2.
Jeff, what do you got? Yeah, fire away.
I've got Draza.
yes.
Okay.
I think he's
Yeah.
going to be.
100%.
I think he's got all-star potential in LA Thieves. And hold your
100%.
phones here. I've got none other than Tyler Fellow.
Oh,
Wow.
Yes,
Whoa.
dude. Yes, thank you.
I think Fellow has been supremely underrated, and even though I think Paris may be bad, I think Fellow will be the best player on that team.
I think so too. 100%.
Wow. Wow.
See you guys.
bold.
Let's go, Rex.
Yeah, Rex is
Let's
hyping you
become
up.
best friends.
I was fighting with them last podcast about this.
Me and Rex me and Josh are like sitting here. Rex is like hyping you up. I'm like, let's
Yeah,
go.
that's the thing. I think it's really interesting, actually. The biggest question is I'm just not sure exactly what breaking out for him would look like because they're not going to be a top 6 team. So then it's like, how good does he have to be for him to be a breakout? That's what's tough for me.
I mean, I hate to put it into comparisons, but he would have to be similar shades of like Octane Seattle Surge year 1 vibes.
That's
for me.
fair. That's fair. Just dominating on an individual basis.
I think for me, it's like Fellow will establish himself as a mainstay CDL potential franchise player this year.
Okay, that's a good way to put it, I think. Is the guy who,
Yes.
even though their team might not be winning, secures himself a future, just like what Afro did last year.
Correct.
Okay, I guess like in that same vein for me then, this feels like a make or break year for Mac. And I think he's going to establish
Like
that he's
that.
still a mainstay player in the CDL. And like, he's already looked, whenever I really dial in on the Seattle Surge team because I'm really interested in seeing how they work. Whenever they're scrimming, I'm like, I'm in. I need to watch this. And Mac continues to impress me whenever they're scrimming against either the Boston squad or Optic. And I think heading into last year, at the end of the day, I think he wants to be an SMG player. He likes the Modern Warfare style games. We saw that in MW where he was a freak. And this year with this roster, they need him to be a slayer. They need him to be the mainstay slayer for this team. So breakout for
Can
Mac.
he be consistent
incoming.
though? Can he be consistent though?
That's the question. So
It's a good question.
We'll see.
I like it though.
But there it is, boys and girls. That's the predictions. The final one would be MVP. Is there any debate for which phase member will it be?
Yeah, there is.
So
There is debate.
who do you guys got? Who's your MVP? Shift, take us away.
Hydra.
Hydra.
Woo! We got back-to-back Hydras?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, y'all are two-piece in a pod today.
Really, it's been like there have been episodes where I've come on where Sam and I are just like, Josh, you're
Yeah.
stupid. And then there's
Yeah.
episodes where I come on with Rex and it's just like, what are
Josh,
these guys
you're
talking
stupid.
about? Yeah, Josh, you're stupid. Really? The only person I haven't bonded with on this show is you, Josh.
What's happening here, man?
I don't know. We got to get on the golf course.
That's what has to happen. Oh my goodness.
That's amazing.
That's fair. I mean, again, Hydra is such a fun pick. I'm very high on Hydra. I mean, I could see Neptune being the ideal breakout player 2 this year. Like, he was very good in last year, but he was by no means like a breakout. And like, if he's bad this year, he could still find himself out of the league. So it's like he needs to establish himself as a mainstay CDL player this year. And he has all the opportunity to, and it would make a lot of sense.
I think with the leadership, he has the potential to be really
Agreed. Hard agree there.
Right. That's the thing. That's the thing. Now with like the bringing in that fundamentals that Clay and Krim are going to force him to learn. So that's interesting. As for MVP, it's hard. Like, in my head, it's either Simp, BZ, or Shotzzy as the MVP, like, favorites. Shotzzy's interesting because, like, if Optic's good, he's the MVP. Like,
sure.
So
they have to be top 2. They have to be top 2.
But they'd have to be top 2. So that'd be the debate. If I'm not going FaZe, I'm going Shotzzy. So I'll go Shotzzy for the lulz. But let's be honest, it's gonna be Simp or BZ.
For the lulz.
Probably a BZ because Simp got it last year.
Yeah, an effort. I don't know. It's gonna be boring, but I mean, I can see FaZe winning champs again, and in that case, it's probably gonna be a BZ.
Yeah.
I can see like you said, if Optic win, probably Shotzzy, unless somehow Scump just has an amazing year too, and
for sure.
I don't know. But it'd be kind of cool to see. I would love to see the Ultra Squad come out and be not just as good, but even better than last year. And
that would be crazy.
And take over. And in that case, probably Cammy would be MVP. But it'd be cool. But that kind of does seem like a stretch. But who knows?
Kleenex on Bo Cage, I could see him being freaky.
No way Bo Cage stays in the map rotation all year long.
Bum Cage,
no,
bro.
Agreed. But like, bro, I mean, you know how many times we saw Kleenex last year, like in bricks on Garrison, just have like a 10 spree? Like, the amount of times we saw that happen with Kleenex, like, I just see him being mixy this year with some of these maps. But that could be fun. That could be really, really fun. So we'll do a bold predictions episode in the future where we can talk more about like the really insane scenarios and then throw some out there, which I'm excited. That's always a fun episode, but we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, like how Royal Ravens are going to finish 4th this year.
Oh, he's already on the train, baby. Let's go.
Bam.
Yeah, I love that from you. I love that from you, man.
Have to say, because I don't know if I'll be around for that episode, but
right,
I got top 4 at the end of the year.
So that'll be a fun one. And again, we wanted this to be a little mega episode. So we still have intelligent and relevant. So without further ado, let's get right into this one. Let's hit it, baby.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
Sam, what we got?
Okay. So in an effort to keep the same vein as our episode, I wanted to get the people's thoughts on the first team to make a roster change this year out of these four teams. So 4 teams I had were LAG, Florida, Thieves, and Surge.
Oh.
So I was really hoping for a close poll here. I think I can get it, right? These 4 teams.
Between Florida or Surge?
Florida, Surge, you think are the 2?
I think the people are going to say Surge and then LAG is the next.
I think the people will say Surge 1, Florida 2. Then, but who was the other team besides LAG?
Thieves.
Thieves? Oh, yeah, LAG then Thieves.
Okay. Yeah.
Thieves is not, that's going to be by far lowest.
You think so?
I think so too.
Like 6% maybe.
Okay. So I'm going to vote Thieves.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting. Okay. So at 50%, we have Florida.
Wow.
At 20.2%, we have Thieves.
Double wow.
At 17.9%, Surge, and 12% LAG.
What were the total vote numbers?
So we had 85 votes. And
what?
We had so Florida first, Thieves, Surge, and then LAG. That was definitely unexpected.
That's
yeah.
unexpected.
Very
really
unexpected.
rating LAG high, aren't they?
That is wild. Wait, so that's actually crazy. People rating, that's what I'm saying. People like that LAG squad a lot. Like, they think it's going to work.
Huh.
Yeah. So with not too many comments, but a couple.
Yeah, read some of the comments.
Couple here. From Hughes, we have, I voted Florida because Yeez is looking solid from what I see, but Thieves could be the answer here too. They look to be underperforming in Scrims, so who knows if they will be a carousel like last year.
Okay.
Interesting.
Fair point.
Yep. Our man Desma said, had to meme this one, boys. Sorry, I know JCap can't wait to make a change.
Yeah, that's kind of where it was headed, right?
Yep. Hordes. I think Florida's going to really struggle with Awakening, and Sky's finding the consistency as a duo like they did last year, which Awakening's running the SMGs. So I'm not sure they're a duo.
Right.
From Sammy Way, we have Florida is an easy answer. Florida came out with comments of roster change when they announced their initial roster, which is kind of off. Surge will fight.
That's true.
Yeah, Surge will fight it through and maybe do a roster change coming stage 3. LEG and Thieves are teams that will stick as they invented more. I'm not sure what that meant.
Interesting. Maybe I think he said they invested more. Probably
invested more.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the last two are saying Florida for sure. So definitely Florida is the main.
I guess now that I see what they're saying, because like in Florida's initial announcement, they were like, and Yeez, he might play,
Yeah. That is true. So
just how they framed Yeez was hilarious.
By default, definitely. Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough.
Wow.
Fair enough. I'm surprised, I guess, to say
Are you
the least,
shocked?
but
Are you
I am.
I'm shocked.
I'm surprised Thieves was above LAG and Surge. That was
Me too.
surprising. That was like Florida being first isn't that surprising, but Thieves being there is really surprising.
If I had to guess, I think the people went heavy on the meme of JCap. So that could be the
that is
issue.
what happened for
I
sure.
agree.
But
Oh, boy.
I agree.
crazy. Well, there it is, folks. That is the Best of 3 podcast today. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. And it was a blast, of course. Shift, thank you for joining us. And everybody, go watch the broadcast this weekend. Shift, where is it being streamed?
Yeah, we are Clutch GG on Twitch.
We are Clutch GG. Will
That's
be
where it's
hosted
gonna
by
be.
Shift and the whole crew, putting on the community streams and the 2Ks and getting down all the action. This is the first actual pro
Big Cup.
or CDL Pro Point matches. So you gotta check them out, Big Cup, and watch the streams. So we appreciate that. Boys, thanks for hanging. It's been a great episode. Like, comment, subscribe, drop all your comments down below. Your thoughts on your predictions. Give us all your predictions for all those categories. Love to see them, and I'll definitely be in the comments replying and talking to you guys. And we appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. As always, it's been the Best 3 CoD Esports podcast. I'm Josh, SalvationsElite. To my right, Bastion3, and to our farthest right, you, Direction here with Shift, and we will see you next time. Peace.